where any such amendments have been made. We did get an indication from the DCDT that there were such amendments. When we sat with the DCDT in March, April, my dates fail me right now, we had engaged extensively on the report and also sought clarity on a number of issues that we sent in a letter to the Minister of the DCDT. On the 18th of May, we're scheduled to receive this presentation. However, it was only tabled on the 26th of June, 18th of June, tabled on the 26th of June. We have received correspondence from the Minister apologizing for whatever lapses there would have been, which entailed that we are sitting here only considering it today. As you know, today should have been the budget vote of the department, the budget vote debate. That has since been rescheduled to the 11th of July, which is next week, Friday. I do want to say that this is quite an important meeting because I think in all our engagements around the strat plans and the APPs, we have been emphasizing that whatever is presented today sets a foundation for the rest of the term of the administration, in that the 5-year strategic plan, while it can be amended at different intervals, most notably the midterm review, but it forms the basis upon which funds are appropriated to the department, but also the broad vision and thrust, I think, of the department, which ultimately impacts the sector and society as a whole. So as we go through this presentation, I think one of the things that we're going to be looking at most importantly is alignment, firstly, because this process draws, I suppose, its genesis from the Constitution, which, amongst others, confers the right to freedom of speech, the right to access to information, the participation in public life, all of which undergird the work that this department is doing. But also the department and the executive as a whole are also guided by the electoral mandate, which is encapsulated in what they presented to us as the medium-term development framework, as well as what the President would have said in his State of the Nation address. So those are our appreciation of what the electoral mandate guides them to do. And there are obviously the interactions that we've been having as a portfolio committee, the sector, industry as a whole, which we are hoping will also find expression in how the department then has decided to plan its work for the next 5 years this year and how they've allocated resources. So without wasting any time then, let me hand over to you, Minister. If you could lead the department in the presentation. The time now is 8 minutes past 10. It is our intention that you have 45 minutes for your full presentation, and we will then engage in discussions thereafter. Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Thanks very much, Chairperson, and to the members of the Portfolio Committee. And Chair, the right way to start this meeting from our end as the executive leadership and the department is to underscore our sincere apologies to the committee and all the honorable members for the events leading and contributing to what led to the postponement of the budget vote debate and the disruption on the committee's program as a result of the delay on our end to do the submissions. We sincerely apologize for that, House Chair, and would want to also thank you for your indulgence even at the 11th hour in terms of the update last week when the matter was being considered. We will be ensuring that there is consequences management in terms of both contributors, both from the ministry perspective and also from the department, because this is a serious matter, as you said, Chair, particularly given that it's one of the highlights in terms of the engagements with the Portfolio Committee. I thought it's important to put that on the record so that ultimately, as the executive leadership, the buck stops with us and we take the responsibility for that and sincerely apologize for that. Chair, as you said, in terms of the time allocated to us, we are coming here with a revised APP because we wanted to tighten alignment both with, you know, the changing fiscal environment that we are in and the operating context. So the key main adjustments would be around the digital transformation target, which the team will be able to expand on in terms of reviewing the target there, from the initially set pursuit of 20% implementation. We'll also be reviewing the target on the job creation target in order to reflect our role as the department in terms of an enabler in the sector, so that we do the monitoring of the work and the contribution by our partners towards the digital economy. We are also revising the target with regards to the legacy networks, particularly the phasing out of 2G and 3G devices, so that we take a much more practical and technically sound approach with regards to monitoring that phase, given the distribution existence in the market of such devices. And on governance, we've also amended that target in there to move from a much more generic reporting to reflect a much more concise approach in terms of governance, particularly for Schedule 2 and 3B state entities, to help us as the department to do our strategic oversight, and that also impacts on the role of the portfolio committee. And also on broadband connectivity, there'll be an amendment there that focuses our role more so to avoid duplication with the role that ICASA does in producing research report that gives insights into the number of households and businesses that are being connected. And lastly, it will be a revision of the target of internet usage, particularly for government services. And we are saying in this regard, the motivation is to look at, you know, the provision of research reporting on that use and measuring it consistently throughout the term. All of these and the others that the team will be highlighting, Chair, is to refine our approach so that they are measurable targets, and also that they align directly with the department's responsibilities and our current capacity, but also the evolving environment that we are in, so that there can be much more accurate and effective monitoring of the work that we do and the performance of the department and its entities. The DG will be able to lead the team, Chair, in the thoroughness of the presentation, and I think that's where the most amount of time should be dedicated into, and then we can have the engagement with the committee, which I have no doubt will be robust. So with your permission, Chair, we'll now invite the DG. Together we've got our DDGs here, all our DDGs except for DDG Sono, who's overseas traveling. We also have the CFO here for insights on the financial allocations, and obviously we have the DM also here. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. DG.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, and a very good morning to all the honorable members and fellow colleagues. Just to briefly indicate what the Minister has indicated in the Chair, and I would like to also put on another apology that there are some slight adjustments on slide 18 and 19 with just in terms of the revision of the wording, and then the inclusion, which I will explain later, on the direction which the department is taking as far as then creating an enabling environment for this sector. If we can then move to slide 3, just to put into context where we stand, we have, as part of government, made contributions with regards to the medium-term development plan. And just to give assurance that all our targets have been consulted with the SOCs, you would have then seen from their presentations as well the alignment to the MTDP. There has been a general consensus with regards to the work that we need to do, but I'm going to underscore some of the challenges that we're facing with when it comes to, therefore, the implementation of the MTDP. When I then talk on the situational analysis. If we can then move to our vision, mission, as well as impact statement. Our vision is to be a leader in enabling a connected as well as a digitally transformed South Africa. And this is therefore by creating an inclusive digital environment. Primarily our focus is on the policy landscape, enabling digital transformation policy strategies as well as regulations, which will then ensure this. And obviously the outcome that we are all focused on is to ensure that South Africa is digitally transformed, building on a digitally transformed society as well as a localized competitive environment. If we then move with regards to our priorities, aligning these, as I said, to the MTDP, under priority 1, which is under the MTDP, inclusive growth as well as job creation, we've identified 3 outcomes. And then under priority 2, on reducing poverty as well as tackling the high cost of living, main priority or outcome there is improving affordability of the connectivity for users to drive therefore the uptake and usage. And then lastly, on priority 3, which is building a capable, ethical as well as a developmental state. As you know, we have 11 entities, and ours is to ensure that we improve governance as well as the performance of these entities, driving them towards financial sustainability, as well as driving, therefore, the impact, our overall impact of ensuring a digitally transformed society, as well as a local competitive economy. And then the last is also then to ensure a capable and professional public service driven by the department, which then focuses on internal controls as well as human capital development. If you then look in terms of the situational analysis, focusing primarily first on our external environment, in terms of then the political as well as the legal landscape under the GNU, the DCDT obviously operates in terms of regulating and shaping our national legislation as well as the policy framework, fostering, as I said, towards the digital inclusion. On the economic front, as you know, South Africa is faced with significant changes, especially under the fiscal constraint. Unfortunately, our department is one of those that has been adversely impacted. In fact, our allocation of the budget this year is almost 50% less than what we had last year. Critical programs that we have in the department are not funded, including obviously funding for our state-owned entities, and I think our CFO will further elaborate on this. So, and over and above that, but at an external level, we are sitting with, therefore, with the situation with regards to huge high rates of unemployment, issues of slow growth rate, as well as staff inequalities. And obviously ours as a department mandate is to bridge the digital divide. So we're sitting, therefore, with a huge responsibility of ensuring that we do turn this scenario around. On the social environment, the department obviously works, as I said, within these disparities in terms of the digital access. We have a high digital illiteracy rate in our country. We want to become a competitive nation. We've got to therefore make sure that we address these barriers. And especially our focus is therefore ensuring the inclusion, meaningful inclusion, including in the rural as well as the underserved areas, providing the basic ICT services as well as digital literacy. Technologically, as you all know, the pace of technology is far exceeds and is much faster than the rate at which we are putting out policies. Our policy legislative process in government and in the country, I think generally it takes about 3 to 5 years. By that time, what we were talking about in as far as the 4G and 5G, we are now looking at the 6th generation technologies, AI, and even under the AI, there has been obviously new areas under that. The issues of Internet of Things, everything is being connected, but the pace at which obviously that we need to make sure that our policy environment and legislation adapts is hindered. And then if you look at the environmental factors, I think one of the issues obviously is about the digital infrastructure and increasing it continues to be an increasing concern. And then on legal and as well as regulatory, apart from the fact that, I mean, South Africa's, I must indicate our constitution thrives. It's one of the most enriched constitutions across the world. But that particular democracy also then has its own complexities of which people would therefore want to ensure that they exercise their right. So, and now in the emerging of issues, the issues related to protection of data, cybersecurity, and digital communications would also need to be taken into consideration. Our approach is that the same rights that you enjoy offline, you should also enjoy online as well. In terms of our internal environment, I've touched on some of the issues related to this. In terms of our organizational structure, the ability for us to ensure that we are able to respond to the current needs, and we have an organizational structure that is designed to align to the strategic mandate as well as for us to be able to deliver. We have to now be focused in as far as then the human resource capacity as well as ensuring that we attract the right skill set for this. And there's areas of speciality that the department does not necessarily have at the moment that we would need to then attract. In terms of financial resources, honorable members, I did touch on this. Our budget has been constrained highly, so it is very difficult for us to be able to deliver on the mandate and all the issues that we would like to, owing to then the fiscal constraints. The department has had numerous engagements with National Treasury. We started these last year, September. Apart from the SA Connect, which remains unfunded as we sit here, we also have been asking for funding for the South African Post Office, the Post Bank, which needs to be capitalized, not recapitalized, honorable members, as it is now a new state bank. And we've also been asking for funding, as you would know, for the SABC in terms of their unfunded mandate. All of those, unfortunately, as we sit right now, they have not been allocated resources from National Treasury or from the fiscus. In terms of the technological capabilities, as a department, we are responsible in terms of driving the digital transformation, and obviously ours is to ensure that we have a well-resourced machinery to be able to know the leading trends globally. And then on the internal processes in terms of our policies, I did indicate this, the slow pace with regards to policy making. And I think obviously the changes that we've had in the department, we've alluded to these previously, also hindered. I now sit and looking at our members and our critical stakeholders, and they would know that some of these, for example, the audio and audiovisual, they have been in the pipeline for the last 7 to 8 years. But because of the political changes in the department, it has meant that we had to restart the process numerously. And then in terms of the organizational culture, ours is to shift into then a digital sound and savvy organization. The theory of change, very briefly, because of time, the assumptions are there. The assumptions are that, as I said, that the citizens will adapt in terms of the new technologies. Digital transformation is a given, and you think, therefore, everyone in government has the same appreciation that we need to move in terms of digital transformation and advance this globally, and therefore you would allocate resources adequately for this, and you ensuring that everyone, you empower the citizens with digital tools. And unfortunately, then you move to the issues of constrained resources, the issues with regards to the right team to deliver on this, and then also then the spreading of the information. In terms of, as I said, so we've then had to adapt to this, identifying what our outcomes are. I've highlighted what those 6 outcomes are, and then our long-term goal strategy is then ensuring a digitally transformed as well society and a localized, competitive economy. Honorable members, I'm now going to ask our DDG responsible for strategic planning and administration to then take us through those strategic priorities and outcomes, as well as then the APP targets. Safe to then indicate that it would have been ideal, what you then have in front of you is not what we would desire. Had we have the right resources, primarily our focus is to ensure that in line with the NDP goals, we want to make sure that every single South African is connected. And therefore we need adequate funding to ensure that. We cannot just rely in terms of the private sector, because obviously commercial interests will restrict them to the areas that are commercially viable, but there are citizens in our country that are sitting in rural underserved areas. In the era of the digital transformation, we need to ensure that we also advance the issues of digital payment as well as financial inclusion. And the role of the South African Post Office as well as the Post Bank are critical in as far as then the both e-commerce and ensuring also the disbursement and also ensuring access to banking for the citizens wherever you are in the country. If we had enough funding for these critical programs, we would then be able to deliver on them and ensuring that we achieve, therefore, our outcome and mandate. I'd like to hand over to the DDG to take us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and honorable members of the committee, Minister, DM, DG, and members from the department. I'm trying to press here for.
That's wonderful.
Right, that's it.
Not the red, the silver one.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I will take the committee through the strategic plan targets that are aligned to the medium-term development plan. In the 5 years, under the outcome number 1, if you can allow me not to read, but to look mainly on the 5-year, where I can read everything so that we are aligned. Under outcome number 1, we are having the 5-year target that seeks to achieve 150,000 jobs created in the digital economy program. Basically, this is to address unemployment. We are going to do this through the working with the DTIC through the global business service system, and this target is in the MTDP, just to also emphasize. Secondly, we are going to make sure that there's a 30% improvement in the key rankings of ICT Development Index, that include WEF, Global Competitiveness Report, and the UN eGov survey. We are also going to make sure that there's a recognition of equity equivalent investment program, EEIPs, in the ICT sector. And there's also, under this outcome 1, we're going to make sure there's 100% completion of priority interventions in the digital transformation roadmap. We also indicated what are the envisaged impact per each 5-year target. So under outcome number 2, we are having several 5-year targets. One is to look at the 100% internet penetration for government facilities. This includes schools, clinics, and hospitals. The second one is 90% of population covered by 5G technology. And the third one, looking at 60% of households connected by fiber. And we are also looking at making sure that there's more than 50% growth of households with fixed broadband connectivity. As I indicated, we also having what are the impacts that we are going to expect from these 5-year targets per each outcome. The under outcome 3, the targets are looking at 100% of government website migrated to the new gov.za platform, and we are going to also make sure that there's more than 50% of internet users using the internet for government services. And furthermore, 50% reduction on data cost, and more than 50% of 4G, 5G smart phone adoption. And we also indicated what are the envisaged impact, Chairperson. Furthermore, under outcome number 4, there are 2 targets. One looking at achievement of at least 80% of digital economy master plan targets of contribution to the GDP, jobs, and transformation facilitated. And the second one, it is looking at utilization of the digital competency, to utilize the digital competency framework to annual report on the digital skills. And then we also indicated there in terms of what are the expected impact of these targets. Under outcome number 5, we are having several 5-year targets there. One looking at 3 public entities rationalized. Here we are looking at Centec, BBI, and CETA. And then the other one is to look at the state information technology, CETA being redesigned, And the other one is looking at 100% of entities with unqualified audit outcomes. And the other one is looking at 100% of state-owned entities that are viable and sustainable, particularly Schedule 2 and 3B. We're also going to look at 100% of state-owned entities achieving a minimum of 80% of governance performance targets outlined in the governance framework, shareholder compacts, as well as the governance agreements. Under the last outcome 6, we're going to look at 100% of DCDT IT strategy being implemented, and the other one is to look at the issue of 40% of procurement set aside for women and youth. So these are the 5-year targets that I've just mentioned. Quickly, I will just, maybe not really dwell much on this one, just to indicate how many APP targets per each outcome. And overall, we are having 30 APP targets in the current financial year. And having done some amendments on the annual performance plan, under Program 1, we have amended the first target, which is the target on the implementation of the DCDT IT strategy. It was initially 20% of the strategy out of 100 in 5 years. So we have reduced this in terms of looking at the issue of the enterprise architecture development that we have already started with it. So when we will also need to appoint the service provider to review and develop the enterprise architecture appointed in Q2, and then from there the IT strategy will be developed in Q3. So basically then in Q4, that is where we're going to start to implement, which will be impossible if we had said 20%. Otherwise, we're not going to meet those 20%, Chair. On the other ones, we didn't make any changes regarding the 100% of valid invoices. We are still maintaining that all invoices paid, received must be paid within 30 days. And in terms of the implementation of the disaster management program, we are going to monitor this program, and we're going to look at the whole portfolio, not necessarily the department, so that we respond accordingly to any disaster that can happen in the country, not necessarily in the department, but in the country. We are able to make sure that we discharge our services. When coming to Program 2, there are no changes. Our amendments, we are still going to look at the 4 country positions that will be looking at the G20, PAPU, UPU, and WTDC in the current financial year. And we are also going to make sure that the report on the G20 Task Force on Artificial Intelligence Implementation Plan are developed. And then and the other one is to look at the reports on the Digital Economy Working Group outcomes being developed. And under Program 3, this is where Chairperson and members of the committee, we have made some amendments, especially on the audio and audio-visual content services and online safety. Initially, it was online audio and audio-visual content services and online safety bill, and then now we're saying a white paper being developed, and then hence we have also made changes from Q1, where we're going to look at the issue of gazetting until that paper is developed in Q4. The others, in terms of the revision of the Digital Economy Master Plan Implementation Plan developed, that will be contributed to the GDP, jobs, and SMMEs, where there are no changes. In terms of the Cost to Communicate Program of Action developed and submitted for approval, there are no changes, as well as the policy direction on the application of IECNS licenses finalized and published. And when we come to the finalized ECA amendment bill, this target, we have removed it. The reasons being that there's been a repeated request from the industry for a comprehensive review of the ECA. Having carefully considered, and as a result, we are proposing limited amendments to the ECA in relation to competition matters will be considered as part of the overall review and alignment of legislation, including the ECA in the sector. Work has already begun, but requires appropriate stakeholder interaction, which will take time, at least up to 18 months. And then one technical amendments to the ECA to create a digital development challenge fund to replace USAF and USASA is already in process, Chairperson. And then having replaced that, we have included the development of the framework for the review of ICT sector legislation policy, /policy, because when we are looking at legislation, we must also be looking at the issue of policy. So having put everything in one, been developed, and already we have lost Q1. We are going to start in Q2 by convening ICT legislative policy sector colloquium being convened, and then we also going to get the in Q3 stakeholder inputs arising from this colloquium, and we consolidated that in Q4. We'll be having a framework being finalized and developed for processing. This is the changes that the DG was referring to in terms of this addition, Chairperson. As far as the creation of 20,000 jobs in the digital economy program, we had added monitored, in the sense that we are dependent on the private sector for us to have these jobs done. However, our entities as well, those who are able to create jobs, they will be reporting on the jobs that they've created on the quarterly and even on the annual basis, Chairperson. And then in terms of, saying monitored, we are having partnerships and even memorandum of agreement or understanding that we are entering with private sector, then that they have indicated that they will be creating these jobs. So in each quarter, we'll be able to indicate how many numbers of jobs has been created, Chair. And then as far as the sunsetting of the 2G and 3G network in line with the next generation's spectrum as well, we are indicating that we will have to consult with ICASA on this one, and then having to look at the issue of monitoring, because there are activities that ICASA is doing, and then hence we want to see how this process unfolds going forward, because it's already in the next generation spectrum policy. So we work with the MNOs in terms of this sunsetting. When we look at the implementation plans, to see which sites that or 2G or sites and 3G sites they are switching off. So that is dependent on the MNOs, hence we put it as monitoring. And as far as the EAIPs, we are saying, we need to put the right weighting there, that applications for equivalent investment programs, EAIPs, will be recommended to the DTIC. We are working with DTIC, so there have been discussion that has already begun with DTIC, and also on the side we also engaging the ICASA. And then having these discussions, we are planning to have the outcome report. We'll have a report in Q2 when we're looking at the outcome of the discussions. And then the outcomes of this discussion will also be shared with all relevant potential applicants and investors. And then those applications that have been received, or those EAIPs applications received and assets, will be recommended to the DTIC. Under Program 4, we have the one on the 100% of performance information and compliance report received and analyzed and recommended for submission to the Minister. We didn't make any changes. We had tweaked the one that target that looks at the state-owned entities, especially Schedule B, 2, and 3B, governance performance reports, analyze and analyst reports with recommendations submitted to the Minister. So basically here we just felt that we shouldn't be just looking at these reports and pass them. We have developed currently now in Q1 the matrix that will be looking at what are the areas that make sure that when we are assessing, they will make meaningful contribution in terms of this entities to be run and to be governed properly. Hence, we have made those tweaking of this target, Chairperson. As far as the drafting of the SITA review model and developed, on this one, we have indicated that we just made some changes in terms of services, of the service provider to make sure that this SITA model, business model, is done, Chair. And we have made those amendments. In terms of Program 5, we didn't make any changes in terms of the quarterly monitoring of the SA Connect, as well as the quarterly reporting on the implementation of strategic national cybersecurity programs and services developed. and the preliminary technical and regulatory studies conducted to inform the first draft of the position of the WRC 27. So, however, under the household fixed connectivity, we have indicated that we are going to do the monitoring in the sense that ICASA are doing part. Otherwise, if we had remained with the research, we're going to do a duplication of work that will also be not so good in terms of our funds. Hence, we have said we're going to look at the household fixed connectivity being monitored. In terms of the last program, which is program 6, in the implementation of the digital transformation roadmap being monitored, focusing on the development of the zero-rated gov.za website, we didn't make any changes. In terms of the implementation of the digital transformation roadmap, key milestone being monitored, we have tweaked that one so that we look at the issue of monitoring these milestones, in terms of the progress that has been made, and this will be happening throughout the quarters, in the sense that this target, it is not only internally forecast, it's also externally forecast. The other changes that we've made, as alluded by the Minister as well, is on the internet usage, on government services research report developed and submitted. This is more technical, that also requires the service provider, and we had tweaked this one, Chair, so that we are able to get credible information that will inform us in terms of how far these services are being used in government. We didn't make any changes with regards to the research report developed to inform the digital competency framework. We didn't make any changes well in terms of the draft national artificial intelligence policy submitted to the cabinet for approval. Even the other targets in terms of the 2 monitoring reports that will be looking at the participation of women, youth, and persons with disability participating in procurement, SMME development, and employment equity in the ICT sector. So we didn't make any changes. We're still making sure that we are monitoring employment equity issues as well as participation of women and youth and people with disabilities. As far as the 365 days of no violence against women and persons with disability programs implemented in all 9 provinces in support of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence, youth program implemented in all 9 provinces as well. We didn't make any changes there. We are still going to pursue that. And the other target that we didn't make any changes is with regards to implementation of departmental and state-owned company priority projects coordinated in prioritized districts. This one as well, we're going to pursue it. We didn't make any changes. And the last one, I think, is with regards to the improvement plan in global rankings being developed. Chair, you can have seen that the members of the committee, that most of the targets that are here, they are linked, some of them directly, and we also added more that make sure that, like the issue of procurement, the issue of 30-day payment, these are the core that always, whenever we are having MTGP, these are additional, that will make sure that we are aligned to the government priorities as well as areas that are urgent to address, other issues that need to be addressed in government. Chair, on that note, I am done. I will hand over through you, Chair, to the CFO to take us through the finances. Thank you. Take this one.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members of the committee. Good morning to the Minister and DM and the members of the department. Okay, I'm just going to briefly take the members through the finances for the next 3 years. This is the MTEF allocation of 2025. The budget started at 2.4 billion, and it was revised to 2.5 billion for the 25-26 financial year. The increase was mainly on two items, which is our COE. 2.7 million was increased on our COE, and 102 million was allocated through the bilateral processes of 2024 that the DG was alluding to in September. We were then allocated only 102 million for ICASA for the spectrum licensing. Then for 26-27 financial year, it was the allocated budget was 2.554 billion. It was increased slightly to 2.557 billion, the 2.9 increase being mainly on the COE allocation. And for the 27-28 financial year, we started at 2.669 billion. Then it was increased to 2.672 billion, and the increase of 3 million being the increase on COE. And I must just state that the COE increases is just to cover the cost of living adjustment and pay progression increases. Therefore, as the DG was saying, that during our bilaterals last year, when we were trying to request for more funding for SAPO, I think we tried to request for SAPO allocation twice. We did the unavoidable budget costs, and we were not successful. And we tried with the bilaterals when we were doing the MTEF allocation, and as I've indicated, we were only allocated 102 million for ICASA, and nothing was considered for SAPO or Post Office or the SABC. Then in terms of the allocation, if I can just talk to the allocation for SA Connect, the SA Connect allocation for the 25-26 financial year, it's only on phase 1. If I must just indicate that the SA allocation, the SA Connect phase 2 allocation ended in 24-25 financial year with the 1.8 billion. Therefore, going forward from 25-26, 26-27, 27-28, we only have an allocation for phase 1. For 25-26, the allocation for SA Connect is 226 million for phase 1. For 26-27 financial year, it's 236 million. And for 27-28 financial year is 247 million. Okay. Then in terms of our projected revenue, the department is not revenue driven. The only revenue avenues that we have, it's mainly on interest on our bank accounts. And when ICASA have sale of their spectrum, then the money gets transferred to the department before it goes to NRF, and there is that interest that we earn as a department. So for the 25-26 financial year, we've projected 2.6 million. For the 26-27 financial year, we've also still projected about 2.7 million. And for the 27-28 financial year, it's about 2.6 million projection. Then in terms of giving feedback on the phase 2 of SA Connect, which was a question from this committee, in terms of the phase 2 allocation, because the budget was only allocated up to 24-25 financial year, we are busy with discussion, and I think the last discussion was just yesterday with National Treasury, because now the project is only set to finish in the 26-27 financial year, on the 31st of, in the 25-26 financial year on the 31st of March 2026. But the budget was allocated up to the 31st March 2025. So there is that misalignment that Treasury is busy assisting the department with, because we are sitting with a situation whereby according to the system that we use and the accounting standard that we use, we should be surrendering the funds to National Treasury. But the 3 implementing entities are still busy
with the project. And therefore, if they had to surrender the money back to National Treasury, they would not be able to complete the project. But emanating from the meeting of yesterday with the Accountant General, the advice that was given is that the department must still pursue it with the budget team. The entities were able to present to National Treasury the status of the project and what it will mean if they had to surrender the funds back to National Treasury. So National Treasury will seek other avenues where the department is able to keep the money without compromising the project, the SA Connect Phase 2 project. So we will still await, and we are still liaising with National Treasury on that matter. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Sorry, before you proceed, can I check, is it deliberate that you are not taking us through the allocation of the budget, CFO? Because I hear you speaking about how much has been allocated, your projected revenue, but in terms of how that budget is allocated to the various programs in the department, where's the money going?
Okay, I can show the allocation letter, Chairperson. It's not deliberate.
Maybe you can proceed, Mr. Lebas.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chair. And in terms of the CRIS that we have identified in the strategic plan, this includes, the inadequate policy implementation. This is a risk that, policies and strategies and regulations will not be effectively be implemented, leading to delays of failures in achieving digital transformation goals. And we have put mitigating measures there, which is the continuous monitoring and evaluation of policy implementation, as well as regular assessments and feedback loops to ensure that policies are being implemented effectively. And where it's required, adjustment to be made when necessary. Under outcome 2, in the key is there. Maybe here I need to read the outcome so that it makes sense in terms of the keys. The under outcome 2, increased internet access and secure digital infrastructure and services. So the keys here include the infrastructure funding caps, insufficient funding for the development and maintenance of digital infrastructure that can impede progress towards increased internet access. And then, the mitigating measures obviously is to secure funding through public-private partnerships, as we have indicated in our theory of change and in all, our submissions, that the private partnership will also play a very critical role and leverage on the collaborations between the department, the government, and private sector to ensure that necessary funding for infrastructure projects is available. And the issue as well of cybersecurity threats. The growing digital landscape may face significant cyber threats as well that will jeopardize the security of digital infrastructure and services. The other one is issue of inequitable internet access. There could be disparities in internet access between urban and rural areas, leading to digital inequality. As well, in terms of mitigating measures, the issue I indicated on the infrastructure funding is to work with partnerships, private sectors. And then on the cybersecurity, the mitigating measures, including the having cybersecurity measures and awareness programs that to ensure that there's implementation of robust cybersecurity protocols, and conduct awareness programs to educate the citizens and organizations and cyber, as well as about the cybersecurity best practices. In terms of the inequitable internet access, the mitigating factors there, we are going to focus on the underserviced areas for internet access. The rural will be prioritized in terms of the infrastructure development, and to ensure that there's equitable access. As far as outcome number 3, improved affordability of connectivity for users to drive uptake and usage. We are going, the identified keys are 2 there. One is looking at high operational cost. The cost of providing affordable connectivity will remain high, making it difficult to reduce prices to end users. The mitigating measures there include implementing a cost reduction strategies and subsidies, to develop strategies to lower operational costs such as infrastructure sharing, and provide subsidies to reduce the cost burden on users. Under the second risk there, that is the market monopoly, the dominance by few large providers could stifle competition and keep prices very high. So in terms of mitigating measures is to look at encouraging competition through policy reforms, and to create and enforce policies that encourage competition in the telecommunications market to drive down prices and improve service quality. Under outcome number 4, demand-led digital skills to impact the economy of the country. The key risks there include, there are two. One is the skills mismatch. There might be a disconnect between the skills being taught as well as the actual needs of the digital economy. We are going, in terms of mitigating measures, is to align training programs with the industry needs to ensure that there's a digital training programs that are designed in consultation with the industry leaders to meet the current and future market demands. The second risk under outcome number 4 is the low adoption of digital skills training, where individuals and businesses may be slow to adopt and invest in digital skills training. So in mitigating this, we are saying we will promote digital skills through awareness campaigns and incentives, to conduct campaigns and awareness, about the importance of digital skills, for meaningful contribution and participation in the economy, digital economy. Under outcome number 5, improved governance and performance of public entities. The key risks there, we have identified 2. One is there could be resistance to change in public entities, where employees and leaders in public entities might resist changes required for improved governance and in performance. The mitigating measures there is to strengthen governance framework and accountability mechanisms, develop and enforce a robust governance framework that promotes transparency and accountability. The second risk here under outcome number 5 is inefficiencies and corruption. This is an ongoing risk. Inefficiencies and corruption within the public entities that can undermine the reform efforts that we are putting to make sure that these corruption issues are not happening. And then to mitigate this, we are going to conduct regular audits and performance reviews. This includes implementing regular audits and performance reviews to identify and address inefficiencies and corrupt activities. The under outcome number 6, capable professional public service. There are 2 as well risks there. One is looking at the workforce skills gaps, where there could be significant gaps in the skills and the capabilities of the department workforce. To mitigate against this, we are implementing continuous professional development programs, and providing ongoing training and professional development opportunities to ensure that employees have required necessary skills to make sure that they discharge the mandate of the department with competencies required. The second one and the last, which is the resistance to digital transformation. Employees might resist adoption of the new digital tools and processes, hindering transformation. In terms of this, we are going to foster a culture of innovation and change management to promote a culture that values innovation as well as to open to change and provide support for employees to adapt to a new digital tools and processes. Thank you very much, Chair. We'll connect the CFO to
Show the breakdown.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just showing the breakdown of the MTEF allocation. I've already spoken to the baseline. If I may just maybe speak about it in terms of percentage. From 25-26 financial year to 26-27 financial year, it's about 11% increase. And from the 26-27 financial year to 27-28, it's about 5% increase in terms of our baseline. I have spoken to the COE and the ICASA licensing of spectrum, the 102 million allocated in 25-26. Then in terms of the Film and Publication Board, we have 107 million allocated in 25-26, 112 million in 26-27, and 117 million in 27-28 financial year. For USASA, we've got 85 million in 25-26, 89 million in 26-27, and 93 million in 27-28. I must just say that the outer years are subject to change. USASA, USAF fund is 54 million in 25-26, 26-27 it's 57 million, 27-28 it's 60 million. And the SABC is divided into the following programs: program production, public broadcaster, and Channel Africa. It's 13 million in 25-26 for program productions, 14 million in 26-27, 15 million in 27-28. For public broadcaster, it's 147 million in 25-26, 154 million in 26-27, 161 million in 27-28. For Channel Africa, it's 64 million in 25-26, 66 million in 26-27, and 69 million in 27-28. Then NEMISA, it's 101 million in 25-26 financial year, 105 million in 26-27 financial year. In 27-28 financial year, it's 111 million. Then for the SA Connect, I've already spoken to it. It's 226 million for phase 1 in 25-26, 236 million in 26-27, 247 million in 27-28 financial year. For SAPO, it's 572 million in 25-26. I must mention that for the past 2 financial years, SAPO's allocation is normally paid to SAPO in the first quarter of the financial year. So as we sit here today, we've already paid that 572 million, the whole amount to SAPO. Then in 26-27 financial year, it's 598 million. In 27-28, it's 625 million. Then I had already spoken to COE, it's 331 million in 25-26, 347 million in 26-27, and 362 million in 27-28. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chair, with your permission, perhaps if I can just contextualize this budget in comparison to what we had requested to National Treasury. So this is basically what they provide for the entities that obviously depending on the funding from the state. We made an additional application for ICASA, for example. What is being allocated there, the National Treasury was only for spectrum licensing allocation. And yet ICASA is asking, which is part of then the previous round of spectrum, is asking for additional 190 million in order to purchase an equipment that will assist us to know where the quality of service is in the country and whether or not what the entities or what the players are submitting is in actual fact truth or not. As you know, they're saying there's 97% 3G coverage, there's 45% 5G coverage, whereas I think honorable members and the rest of society would want to dispute that number, because there are a number of areas in our country where there is no network connectivity or the network is poor. We did not get that. FPB, honorable members, you were here. They did come. They came to present. They've got now an extended mandate. They've requested for additional resources as well. CFO, I think you'll need to look into that, the number as well. But we did not get that funding for them. So basically, what we then want in terms of online content regulation, we are still fitting it to the original suit of in terms of the human capital. So they will not have your regulators, people who would actually go out there and implement and assess whether or not in terms of your online content network, especially when you look at the vulnerable, your children, exploitation of women online, etc. We've held about the issues with regards to how are they able to ensure that the information that they've gathered, they can verify it, so they would need people to do the verification and for it to then go for prosecution. They're not able to have that funding. With regards to the USAF as well as the Universal Service Agency, again here, we collect annually contributions from your licensees, but that money is redirected back to the national fiscus, and it's not necessarily redirected for us to, within the mandate of USASA, of ensuring that you close the digital divide, especially focusing in terms of the rural and underserved areas and the most vulnerable in society. I want to come specifically on the SABC. SABC requested, I think it was a tune of about 450 million for the unfunded mandate. We did not get that application for the SABC. So the SABC, as you know, it means that they need to go to government departments and even the private sector to beg in terms of the advertising revenue, and amidst in the environment that is there, obviously fiscal constraints as well. And then on the on NEMISA as well as .ZEDNA, we also made additional requests for funding. Again, on the SA Connect, honorable members, we made a request for the, I think it was another it was 8 billion. We're still waiting for the big budget infrastructure fund to give us a determination. And as I indicated now, what is there with regards to the SA Connect allocation is the allocation from phase 1. It's basically the maintenance of your sites from phase 1. So meaning we've connected 1.8 million households now. We've deployed Wi-Fi into the rural and underserved areas, into the communities. That infrastructure, as we sit right now, is not maintained. We don't have funding for it. So at any given point in time, any of the ISPs can decide to switch off that particular network, and our communities are going to be at destitute. In the same way, we requested the funding. As you all know, we went for an application publicly to the courts for the business rescue of the South African Post Office. Government was supposed to then inject 3.8 billion as part of the SAPO turnaround. We do not have the allocation for that funding given to us. The Post Bank, as I indicated, also asked for the capitalization of the new bank. I think it was also to the tune of about 4 million 4 billion. Thank you. This is the 4 billion over the MTSF period, and we did not get over a 3-year period, and we did not get the funding for that. So that's the current destitute that we're sitting and the constrained environment that we are operating in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe for the sake of completeness, CFO, can you then show us the allocation of funds within the department to the various programs? What are you funding in the department?
In terms of the allocation for the various programs, just want to see the correct financial year. I've got the database here for the administration program. In terms of the financial year 25-26, according to the E&E workbook, the budget allocated. Okay, just go. Sorry. I apologize that this is not in the presentation mode.
Okay, CFO, we're going to waste time. Can we give you an opportunity to get that information, because we need to understand how you are allocating funds to the various programs to drive this strat plan. So we'll give you time, but I think maybe let's move on to the discussions if the DM and the Minister don't have any additions to make. Eugene? Thank you very much. Honorable members, thank you so much for your patience. I know that took a bit of a while. It was important, however, that we afford sufficient opportunity for the department to take us through this presentation. I'm going to open for discussions, but I want to just start with getting an understanding from the department. When Mr. Libabo was speaking, he spoke about many tweaks, and we tweaked this, we changed this. Now, our understanding was that you were given an opportunity to make changes based on any revisions that would have been done to the fiscal framework. Is this a correct articulation of these tweaks, or are there other reasons that you were changing these documents? If we could just get that understanding, because we need to understand what our baseline is so we can move from there. Minister DG? You are leading the delegation, Minister.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of the changes that have been made, as we have been given opportunity, there some of the necessity for those changes were, for example, under Program 1, if I can start there, we didn't have in fact, the resource left, and we didn't have person was driving this IT strategy until we get, by the time we're doing changes, we had received the interim CIO, and when she comes in, she assessed the program in terms of achievability, and then hence it was impossible when she was analyzing. That is some of the changes. In terms of Program 3 in particular, in terms of the legislation, I think with the engagement of the ministry, that is where those changes were made based on the advice in terms of the approach, in terms of those areas that has been made, and hence we also added the issue of the review as well, in addition to the removal of the ECA. And in terms of the Program 4, the main issues was that even when we were planning, because of the short time, if you remember the medium-term development plan, when it was developed, we had a very minimal time to really think through the process, and as well as the smart targets in terms of developing that. That also made us also to rush in other targets. Hence, we felt that we have to get them right and smart in terms of measurability and practicality. That also goes with Program 6, on the changes that we Program 5 in particular, that we also avoided when we're engaging with the entities. We avoided a situation where we are duplicating efforts. Otherwise, we're going to have contradiction in terms of the findings of the reports that we're going to do. That is what I can mention for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Again, so there were no budget cuts that happened between budget 1.0 to budget 3.0 that necessitated you changing anything? No.
In terms of budget, we had requested in particular clarity. I think the CFO will assist in terms of the SA Connect, because we are planning not only for the department, but for the portfolio. That also limited us in terms of the response that we got from the National Treasury. But I think CFO can assist in terms of, the availability of that.
I don't want to have a dialogue. I just need to set the foundation for members to engage. I'm asking, as a result of the revision to the fiscal framework based on the removal of the 14% VAT, were the changes that happened to the department? Was there a reduction in the amount of money that was allocated to the department? That's all I'm asking. So there were no changes? Okay, thank you very much. Honorable members, can I then put the strat plan, the annual performance plan, and the budget before you for clarity seeking, for discussion, for probing? The department is saying to us that this is what they want to do over the next 5 years, and the amount of money that they have been given to do it. The necessary implication that we should draw from the strat plan is that if they do everything that they are saying they're going to do, this indeed is going to go a long way towards resolving the challenges in the sector, responding to issues of inclusive growth, job creation, lowering the cost of living, and creating a capable and ethical developmental state. So you are asked then to make your comments or approve this as the visionary and ambitious program of government in the ICT sector. I'm going to take 2 hands at a time. We get responses. We've got just over an hour and a half to engage. We'll take 2 hands, get responses, move on. I see that in terms of my numbers, we've got 6 members, so we should have 3 rounds of questions. I would like us obviously to be as detailed as possible on this. We don't have much time before the date that has been put for the consideration of this budget vote. May I see hands? Or can I assume everybody is going? So I'll start in the front. Honorable Matafa and Honorable Chauke Adonis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Minister and DM, DG and the team, honorable members. Chair, mine are very few, and I think they revolve around the policy positions that we are taking. Maybe let me appreciate the presentations and all that spoke in presenting the information to us. Chair, you'd remember that a lot has been said around overhaul legislative framework review. Now, it is being presented that the ACA amendment bill is being withdrawn, and I note the explanation that is given. But my worry, Chair, is that there are serious areas like competition matters, as it's reflected on slide 18, that we would have appreciated to see them being reflected in the new amendment bill. And in another slide, they do highlight them as a risk, particularly the monopoly of the industry. Now, my worry is the withdrawal at this time, because for me it's a very late stage, and this also has an impact on the cost of data, because we believe that the Act could have been used to assist customers who are constantly complaining about the high cost of data, and the poor in particular. So we are speaking about economic inclusion in the sector. So how can the minister justify this retraction? And what about the funds that have been allocated in the process of the amendment of the bill, if there are any? How do we justify having spent those particular funds, and then after that we come back and withdraw? The withdrawal, Chair, for me, I'm not sure, and the minister can assist. Are you not falling in a trap where the incumbent always tries to reverse initiatives of the predecessor, given our arrangement in government as well? Maybe in some corners you see this particular act as an ANC process, and maybe then you want to bring in your own flavor, hence the withdrawal. Because for me, I'm really concerned, because the amendment bill for us had promised us a great deal, especially for alleviating our consumers from the challenges they are facing. And maybe you can just share with us, how do we anticipate our consumers and the industry itself to be assisted through policy instruments in the absence of the amendment? because without the overhauling of the bill, then you only have policy instruments to deal with the issues that maybe I would have raised. Chair, the other point is just on the audio and audiovisual media services and online safety. Can we please get clarity on the presented outcome and the intention behind the framework as presented? The audio and audiovisual online safety. Yeah, the question is around the outcome that has been presented and what would be the intentions behind the framework. So what are we seeking to achieve in that particular space? So the last point for me is on the combating of disinformation and fake news. We know that we are dealing with a lot of content, especially that is generated through artificial intelligence. And we believe that a white paper would have been critical in the current time that we find ourselves, especially of high resolution content streaming, hyper connectivity and the like. So can we just find a view from the department, what is it that they are doing along those lines to ensure that online safety is guaranteed, either through policy or through legislation as it relates to audio and audiovisual online safety? My parting shot would be, we are concerned from our side as the ANC study group, Comrade DM through you, Chair, the reduction in some of the targets that had been set before. So where possible, we'd request that the ministry and the department try to revert back to the original targets, because it is common knowledge that in our industry, targets are always moving, but they never move backwards. They always move forward. So if we look at reducing the targets that we have placed in the previous strategic plans, are we not actually widening the gap between what we seek to achieve and where the country is actually in the sector? Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. That is my side of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Matafa. Honorable Chauki Adonis.
It's on.
It's on. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and the honourable members, the Minister and the Deputy Minister and the delegation that is before us. We do appreciate the presentation that has been put before us, but one also finds themselves quite concerned in terms of the shift from the original APP and strategic plan that we had received, also taking into consideration that they were not, as a department, affected by the what we call, what is it, 3.0 budget, but yet we've got some changes that are being presented. I would like to find out, perhaps from the department, when the minister announced, I would call the suspension of the process of the SABC bill, it was indicated that the plan was so that this can be done in concurrence or jointly with the audiovisual white paper. But yet we're sitting months later and we don't know what the way forward is for both. And I think it's quite important for us to have an appreciation and understanding what the impact of that is on the audio and visual sector, but also on the SABC. Perhaps if the minister can give us an indication of where we are currently. Are we planning on having any further delays, or is there a proposal in your strategy that perhaps could elaborate on that? I don't think I saw anything that further elaborated, but there was an indication in terms of the plan, but it did not say how you're going to ensure it's done, and also the timelines were not adequately articulated. The second question I would have would be really understanding the impact of these delays on the broader society. Perhaps we can have an indication of what has been identified as the broader impact it has on, broader society in terms of accessing these particular services when we are delaying legislations that are quite critical, such as the white paper on the audio-visual, when we are delaying the SABC bill. And basically we're saying that the SABC, we do not want to see it as a state institution or entity that is progressive and becomes successful. That's how I would personally view it. My other question would be centered around, the regulations. Regulatory frameworks that are put in place. What are those looking like for the department to regulate foreign investment, especially in the digital space, when it comes to innovation, technology, AI? What are we going to be using as the formula? Is there an intermediary policy that we perhaps need to review, revise, or is there a legislation that you will have as a proposal in order for us to regulate foreign investments that come in? The last question would be around, in terms of employment opportunities. There was an indication that there was 100% targets, there was 40% targets, but I'm not necessarily getting the sense of how exactly are we going to achieve that in the 5 years. Are those realistic targets, or are we setting targets and we're going to come back and say we only achieved 80% of that because on paper it looks good? Also understanding that and appreciating that it was presented that there was some budget cuts. How are you going to be able to achieve these targets that have been set, especially those at 100%, when you're having financial constraints? The last part would be on the opportunities again, economic transformation opportunities for the most vulnerable. I think in the presentation and the strat plan on APP, it speaks about opportunities for the vulnerable, persons with disabilities, those in rural communities, etc. But it does not give direct targets and timelines around that. And I'm very cautious or worried that it looks good for us to present that these particular marginalized groups are going to be taken into consideration and are part of our strategic overall plan. But we do not necessarily say what are the targeted programs that are going to be rolled out by the department or collaboratively by the department, the private sector, or other departments through this department, in order for us to ensure that there's adequate access to the services of economic opportunities, and also through the processes that you will be undertaking to involve stakeholder engagement. I think that would be my last one for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me take two more. Honorable Alicia, followed by Honorable Subrathi.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to the Minister and Deputy Minister and colleagues. Chair, I don't know what it will take for us to declare South Africa a failed system. I'm sitting here thinking, I sit in two committees, and I think we always like dealing with the same things. I think we're a country, actually Dr. Somadoda Figeni said this, but we are a country with good intentions, but these things never get implemented. Because every time when we are sitting, I notice how everything that is on paper does not reflect on the ground. The things never reconcile. And we have a president who stands there and make promises to the people. But when we are dealing with the departments, it's always, but we don't have money to implement these things. So I always question, Oba, what is happening? I'm always filled with so many questions. We have a president every term. He stands in front of the nation and says, these are the things we are going to do. But when we come to portfolio committees, we always have people like DG touched me when she said, we would like to present something better, but, So we don't have money for a lot of things that are promised to the people. And we must sit in committees and approve and support these budgets, but it's not what, the government said it's going to do. And I ask, and Prof. Somadoda asked, are we a strategy-driven country or we are a treasury-driven country? because it always lies with Treasury. And like DG is saying here in Dogobana, SAPC needs, some financial injection, and then this entity needs financial injection. And we know what's going to happen if these injections don't happen. We are going to fail, and people are going to look at this government to say, but you promised this. Like even this connectivity that we're talking about, to say, oh, we're connecting, you find out that it will be available in Sentin, but people of Alex cannot relate to the things that we are saying. So are we really like a strategy-driven country, or we are a treasury-driven country? So my question also then, Chair, I'm wondering, I probably just have two questions because I don't even know what to question with what we're faced with. I just want to know if there is a plan to dismantle white monopoly capital in the ICT sector. I think we can agree that there's a need to transfer ownership and control of the digital infrastructure to black-owned SMMEs. And maybe I think my colleague, Honorable Adonisi, touched on this one, to ask, I see the claims of job creation, but I think it lacks like specifics in terms of like how will it be distributed to the marginalized communities? Because we have young people in the rural areas, we've got young people in informal settlements, and we've got, women and people living with disabilities. How are we going to ensure that these jobs are distributed to those people? And I cannot raise this one, DM. The rationalization of SOEs like BBI and Centec, privatization. And it's under the guise of efficiency. And as the EFF will never support that. We remain fully, to call for the state-owned entities to remain state-owned, but we want the corruption to be cleared. And maybe the last one, Chair, I just want to ask, are there any plans for the gov.za to be zero rated? Do we have any plans so that, the young people who want to access government sites? If I just want to know clarity on that, do we have any plans to meet them halfway and make these gov.za to be zero rated? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Suprati.
Thank you so much, Chair, and greetings to you, to Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and all officials in the House and honorable members. Chairperson, let me begin firstly by indicating that the African National Congress caucus deploys to this portfolio committee has interrogated the APP and the strat plan in detail. And maybe before that, we hugely anticipated to interrogate the amendments that was the reasons given for the delay. And what we've gathered here this morning is that the financial impact, I cannot link it to the reason for the delays. I would have accepted, and just to give a simple example for South Africans listening in, if the department told me we wanted 100 million for X project to purchase computers, and now we don't have that 100 million to buy computers, therefore computers was there, now it's not there. I can link that, but I can't see that. What I'm rather seeing, Chairperson, is a qualitative reduction and a regression in what has been presented here today. What I can see here is the undoing of great amount of work that's gone in up to the 6th administration that has now been removed. And let me cite that, Chairperson, by a few examples. I cannot accept that in the original plan, a 20% implementation of DCD transformation, digital transformation strategy is now reduced to a mere 5%. What is the thought? And that's not my question. I'm just trying to scenario sketch the uncomfortability of the caucus of the ANC in this House. The ECA bill that Honorable Matafa has alluded to, we've incurred expenditure. Now it's been rubbished. It's been taken off. It's there on the original target APP, Manja, it's not there. Indab, why is it being taken off? Is that linked to the treasury funds that didn't come? That's the point I'm making. If you look at the redefinition and very nicely of the draft audio-visual bill, now it's reduced to a framework. A bill to a framework is regression. ECA bill to notice there is regression. 20% to 5% is regression. So what are we supposed to be approving? An APP that's regressive? That doesn't talk to the needs of society? We speak of 20,000 jobs being intended and hoped to be created, yet in the Q1 to Q4 presentation, we don't see a deep dive in terms of what are we going to achieve every quarter. So we hold, as a committee, hold the department accountable that in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, where are we going to generate these jobs from? We are supposed to be implementing and approving, a plan for the next 5 years that we are supposed to be connected to. If we approve anything lesser than what this portfolio committee truly is committed to, we would be doing South Africans a disservice, because the vision of connectivity depends on this committee for the next 5 years. Chairperson, I'm going to have a few pointed questions. In the theory of change, as well as vision and impact statement, the role of the department is described as enabling a digitally transformed society and a localized competitive economy. Now, how is the department ensuring this? What programs, policies, and initiatives are being driven to drive digital transformation? And I want to place an emphasis on localized competitive economy. I'm leading to another point. Nowhere in the APP, Chairperson, and the strat plan are there any progressive programs to drive digital infrastructure and connectivity. South Africa is still lagging behind with its peers on an affordable broadband and rural connectivity, and the department here does not have a target on driving SA Connect and connecting the deep divided society. Question 2, Chairperson. We understand from your letter that APP tabling delays were due to the NT National Treasury engagements on SA Connect funding. So what are the outcomes of these engagements? What happens to the government investment? And I think Chair DG did allude to that. And the current infrastructure deployed. We know that unused infrastructure is vulnerable to vandalism and exploitation. And how will this investment by government to date be safeguarded against such exploitation and vandalism? And more importantly, how do you ensure that citizens, especially the most vulnerable, are not adversely impacted? Is there no provision from the current 2.5 billion that can be utilized to sustain these networks? Chairperson, if we talk localized economy, my question is, what portion of South African economy in the digital space is owned by local industry players? What is the portion of the ICT sector? What is the portion of the ICT sector is owned by black, by colored, and by Indian groups? Whereas the minister is very quick to chant the EIP and dismantling BBEE program. Is it because that the BBEE program has achieved its target? Has the department done a benchmark on the state of ICT sector and localization that it talks to? Chairperson, 2 more questions and I'll pause. Does the department have deliberate programs on localization? Which programs and policies are in the current APP advocating to support your vision and mission and theory of change, advocating and championing a competitive localized economy? The African National Congress Chairperson advocated for transformation. We supported BEE and even through our wireless open access network in order to ensure level playing field and room for BBEE group to participate and own critical infrastructure in our country. Finally, Chairperson, instead, we are being pushed here to support an APP that advances for applications for equity equivalent investment programs. The facts are The equity program is a mandate of DTIC. The DTIC has never raised concerns about unfair, unfavorable, and biasness in the ICD sector. The DTIC, if it had a problem, would have commissioned an inquiry and called for public engagement. Is this an area that the minister has mandate on? Prioritizing the EEIP over and above localization and advancing your mandate is not giving confidence of leadership. Unfortunately, Chairperson, intentional to lead this sector. Chairperson, I have a few more questions. If time allows, I will come back later, but I'll pause here. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrathi. I'm going to take the last two members. Sorry, the members are going quite fast, so I think we can go with the time. Honorable Vilakazi, and then followed by Honorable Bodlani.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, and to the colleagues in the room. And it's lovely to have a full complement, or almost full complement, of the leadership of the department. My questions, Chair, I noted when you made your introduction, DG, that you mentioned that the department is primarily focused on policy. My colleagues have expressed concern at some of the movements around policy, particularly the ECA. But I wanted to say that I was pleased to see that there's more being added in terms of outcomes regarding the digital economy master plan, the digital transformation roadmap, because those are the instruments that we need indeed to prepare this ground for speedier digital transformation. So hopefully those moves will unlock processes moving forward. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to say that I noted that, and I thought it was good that the department is putting an emphasis on that policy aspect that only it can do, but that enables the wider sector. On the outcomes, I'm bothered by some of them, in that it's not clear how they will be achieved. For example, how will the department create 150,000 jobs? I think actually it was the Honorable Bodlani that asked this previously. I heard something about a global business service system. I'm not even sure what that is or how that will impact this outcome. It also said that 90% of the population, one of the outcomes is 90% of the population covered by 5G. How, when SA Connect is currently inactive? And in fact, I don't believe that the lack of funding for SA Connect and the fact that it's inactive was mentioned as a risk, but I think it's a big one because it's one of the main pushes of the department. And then just also still staying on sort of the technical aspects of the outcomes, the indicators are much better, by the way, on the departmental presentation than what we've seen on the entity presentation. However, the concerns are still just around indicators that are not really, that could be strengthened. For example, number of country position papers approved. But to what end? A paper, a report, is not normally an end in itself. And I think in the cases that we see here, those reports aren't an end in themselves. They are meant to achieve something else. So I would suggest to the department that we improve those outcomes to reflect the actual end goal, not what is an activity towards that main goal. And then also, and there's a lot in terms of departmental outcomes to do with monitoring. Again, the department doesn't exist to just monitor. Monitoring can be just looking, okay, it's here, okay, it's over there. But to what end is that monitoring? And I would say that the outcome ought to be then that end, the number of entities that are implementing a policy, or extent to which a policy has been implemented by entities or whatever it is, as opposed to just we're monitoring the policy. The department says the sunsetting of 2G and 3G is dependent on the MNOs. But I'd love to see a goal of the department itself. I believe the department has a role to play here. It is not just a taker of whatever the MNOs say. The department itself is in fact a driver here. What is the target of the department in regard to this phenomenon that has dragged on and does not seem to have an end in sight? And then we've had conditions actually, whilst again on the side on the technical aspects to the monitoring frameworks, we've had conditions. We've had to have conditions attached to the support given to the monitoring frameworks for the GCIS and MTDA, mainly due to the fact that we felt the outcomes and outputs, just the monitoring framework elements in those documents are not very helpful, not very meaningful. Some of them aren't even monitorable, if that's a word. And so I just wondered, what oversight role does the department play over the entities in the development of these, strategic plans and APPs? And this was just a standalone question. What will happen? The auction of spectrum is in the plans of both ICASA and the department, and there was talk of this 102 million that's been provided for that purpose. What is it that is going to happen? I have not seen on any of the documents. What is it that is going to happen then in regard to the auctioning of the spectrum this year? Will we see spectrum open this year, or is it going to be preparatory activities? So what can we expect to happen in regard to spectrum this year, especially seeing this allocation of this sizable chunk of funds? Cost of employees, we noted that levels 13 to 16 on the departmental budget constitute 25% of the staff complement, yet they take up more than 50% of the budget. This looks like a top-heavy, looks like the department is top-heavy. Can the department please maybe just enlighten us in terms of what accounts for what looks like a skewed lay of the land in regard to cost of staff, and then how is the effectiveness of COE measured within the department and across the entities? Is the performance management in place, and other consequences? My colleagues here have spoken about the despair that we all feel many times when we look at the work of the department. So clearly, goals are not being made, are not being met. Clearly, executives are not hitting the targets that are set for them. And if they take up more than 50% of the budget towards human resources of the department, what consequences are there for failure to achieve? What the chair wanted to know whether there were any impacts on the budget of the changes to the fiscal framework. In relation to that, I'd like to know whether any changes to the budget, even the allocation within line items in the budget as a result of the changes to the outcomes, because some new outcomes have been added. Have those been supported by commensurate moves, alignment or realignments within the budget? The Honorable Xilishe expresses concern around rationalization of entities. In our minds, as the Democratic Alliance, we see it as different from privatization of entities, but we just see it as consolidating them, perhaps having fewer entities, and such as in merging BPI and Centec. One other way that assists is in lowering budget. You have fewer boards, you just have less replication of issues. Is the department considering that, particularly in light of the high constraints, financial constraints that the DG mentioned? Is the department considering expediting, because we know that there's already talk about it, but expediting the consolidation of entities? And also just again on SA Connect, what's happening with the staff that are allocated to SA Connect now that it actually it currently, seemingly, is at a standstill awaiting these funds. And then finally, on the risks, excuse me, access and affordability of internet was mentioned as one of the risks. The MNOs have came to us and have pointed out that load shedding, vandalism are two of their top risks. All of them mentioned those as risks. And they did say that actually these risks that they face impact their ability to lower the price of connectivity. How is the department helping in this regard? Also, that the MNOs complained about USAF as well as parity in terms of how they are treated by the department, according to them. How is the department normalizing, or how would the department respond to that concern from the MNOs? And then corruption was also mentioned as a key risk. Excuse me. But rumors abound within the department, as in fact other state entities, of the role of middle management being the corrupt role of middle management, playing a role, for example, in the award of contracts, in what information gets passed on to the principals, etc. And I know that, for example, the Minister of Infrastructure Development recently instituted a lifestyle audit within his department coming out of similar issues. Is the department considering lifestyle audits? And I know they've also been done at CETA. How about the department itself? And then finally, DG, you mentioned SAPC and the SAPC Centec debacle, but those organizations are literally at death's door. They are facing an existential crisis that could see one or the other of them close, literally shut down in the next month or two. What is the department's plan around resolving the issues pertaining to these two? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vilagazi. Honorable Botlani.
Good morning, Chair, to the Minister, the DM, the DG, and the delegation and colleagues. Chair, I think when one sits in this room, there is really a realization that whatever engagements we make in this room should really be felt by the ordinary South Africans. And I think this is also what Honorable Vilagazi was alluding to say, we may be looking good internationally in terms of what we can benchmark ourselves against and whatever. But if the ordinary South Africans do not feel the work of the department, then it really means nothing. So I think the need for us to translate the conversation that we are having here to be felt by South Africans is the biggest thing. And that's how we are going to really get out of being called a developing state and really catch up, because that's really what it feels like. I think let's start with the issue of the budget cut. Understanding that there has been an almost 50% shortfall. What sort of cuts are going to be made? Are we going to see job losses? What sort of overhead cuts are going to, overhead costs are going to be re-looked at? And how soon can we do that so that it does not impact on the core business of the department? And I'd love for us to talk about, when we talk about budget cuts, to also balance that with the funds that would have been retained to the National Treasury in the last financial year. Because with my little understanding, National Treasury will say, I give you R1, and if you use only R8, then it means you didn't necessarily need the full amount. So how do we balance that? If you could just speak to that so that at least we empower on that. I've always wanted to ask the question to say, the department channeled funds into SAPO, which, if you ask me, is really not a sustainable organization. With the greatest appreciation that the business rescue process was a court order, with also appreciating that the business rescue practitioners are talking about exiting the business. And is the business stronger? I personally do not believe so. So the question would be, what informed, I think it was 150 million that was given to SAPO by the department. And when we've heard that you've got the SABC, for example, which is equally ailing, what informed that decision? And I know there's an issue of saving jobs, but there should also be a realization that you do not save jobs for the sake of saving jobs. If you are going to have an organization that is on its knees and you continue to resuscitate, I think for me that is a real problem. So what informed SAPO over any other entity, example SABC? And with the budget cuts, as we have heard today, what support is the department going to give the SABC and again SAPO, if anything? What are your plans around that? The presentation talks about the department operating around in a legal and regulatory environment. And they also report about talking about evolving legal and regulatory landscape. But the response of the department is slow. And I like that they also highlight it as a risk. We cannot be having an awareness and being slow in the responses creates an imbalance. It really creates an imbalance. It means that we are really on a back foot again. And to the point, and of course the points have been made on the ECA. If we have an appreciation that we operate in a legal or regulatory environment, evolving environment, but we become this slow, and I know I've asked this question before, do we have the capacity to be responsive? Because the withdrawal of the target of the ECA almost says to me, perhaps we do not have the capacity. And tied to that, it is scary to have a conversation about leaving it to 12 months, maximum 18 months. Already the withdrawal thereof is a big red flag, and then leaving it to 18 months maximum. What can be done to shorten the time so that at least you speak to the worries that have been raised here by the members in this meeting today? Because I really think 18 months is really pushing out something that should have been worked on years ago, if anything. And the department talks about fostering a culture of innovation. Could I please ask for examples of how you do that? And also how you interact with sister departments, for example, the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation, I do beg your pardon to say. How do we foster innovation? What has come out of the department that we can say, aha, this is what we have done because we do foster a culture of innovation? Please cite an example for me. Chair, on outcome 1, the anticipated number of jobs that would be created is 150,000. In the previous cycle, what is the number of jobs that were created? So what is the baseline? What informs again the 150? Just so that at least we understand that this will be translated and be felt by South Africans. And obviously this is not a new idea. So what are you reporting on the previous financial year? And again, what lessons did you learn that will ensure that in the previous cycle, in the previous financial year, that will ensure that the 150,000 jobs that we speak about will be realized? I think Honorable Subrathi has really spoken to the 30 APP targets for 2025-26, so I will not go there. Chair, I would have loved to hear a bit more on the South African Post Office when the BRPs have already spoken to us about wanting to exit. And I don't think we've really had a conversation with the department about their intention to exit. What is the plan of the department? I've always said the BRPs and their existence at SAPO has created room for brain drain. Because now you've got you've got acting CFO, you've got acting this, you've got acting that, and when they exit, what plans does the department have to ensure that SAPO remains on its feet, especially considering that the amount that has been drained from SAPO by the process of business rescue? And I think it's another unfortunate thing that you have BRPs that are going to walk away smiling all the way to the bank when people have lost their jobs and SAPO is not necessarily on its feet, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's an issue of processes. I've spoken to the 18 months. Where are we again on the broad digital migration? We know, I said maybe and I don't want to use the wrong word, court gagging, stopping the process gives an opportunity. Is there any recent feedback on that? Can we get an update? Are we moving? Is there a lot still happening there? What is the latest? Chair, I also would have appreciated to hear a lot more about what the department wants to do about corruption, but perhaps to borrow from the suggestion that was made by Ndate Vilakazi to say, are there any plans to institute lifestyle audits, especially on the middle management? And the last question, I was worried when I saw DM leaving the room, because the question is for him. I saw him nodding when Honorable Talisha was talking about the rationalization of BBI and Centec and how that will now provide room for privatization. What was he nodding about? Because he was nodding when the point was made about the rationalization being about, because that's not how we understand it. What did we miss? Because the understanding was that to synergize the BBI and the Centec. Why are you nodding when they talk about privatization? So, what was he nodding about? So if you could just clarify, I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bodlani. Thank you, members, all of you for your inputs. Let's also thank the Ministry and the Department for the work that has gone into these documents. You know, I was reading something, I don't know, I came across something on the Parliament website, wherever, that speaks about a committee or a book, I didn't even know it's called MEMCOM book or something, that shows members in particular committees and when they joined. In 7 days exactly, on the 9th of July, will be 12 months since some of us were ATC'd as members of this committee. So we've been here for 12 months. I'm not sure if I want to celebrate it. I'm really not sure if I want to celebrate it, Honorable Vilakazi, because when I went through the strat plan and the APP and the work that has gone over the last 12 months, I wondered if anybody has been even listening, or are we having the same appreciation of challenges, or is everybody, I don't know which member said it, everybody just going off on their own vanity projects, deciding this and this? I've said, I think 3 times in this meeting, that this plan that is presented to us is supposed to be a visionary, ambitious, bold plan that is supposed to catapult South Africa into the digital age. And then I go back to it, you know, outcome by outcome, impact statement by, and I'm saying, where is it? What is the big idea? And with your indulgence, members, I'm actually going to go through my notes exactly as they are. A number of the issues you have touched on, but I do want to know on this issue of job creation, 1,000 jobs. In Xhosa, they say, "Sisephi komkhulu." What must we take to the great place? Because we don't know what you're saying. Firstly, you're going to create jobs. You're passionate about creating jobs. We ask you questions. You come back with an answer that says you will do it in partnership with the DTIC. You will monitor these activities through the implementation plan of the Digital Economy Master Plan. Then you come here, you're saying, no, you're not creating jobs. You are monitoring jobs. You are monitoring these jobs where? Where are you going to start monitoring? Where are these MOUs that you are talking about? Who has signed MOUs to date? How many jobs have been created? Do you think that, colleagues, you sit there in the places that you sit in with the sole intention of monitoring? You go, you promise the people of South Africa that there shall be inclusive economic growth, there shall be job creation, then you come and tell us when we ask you, because had we not asked you, where are these jobs, you would have told us that you are creating 150,000 jobs. Now, you must be clear to us that we must go out to the people of South Africa and say, this government has no intention of creating jobs, they're going to be monitoring. Because if that is your role, as this department, which the DM always says is a critical enabler of economic growth, and you can't even tell us where you are creating jobs. So who's going to be creating the jobs? Similarly, you take the digital transformation roadmap. You were going to implement 100% of the targets. We ask you, what are the targets? How are you going to implementing it? Now you're coming back and you're monitoring. So who's going to implement that digital transformation roadmap? Because when you speak about it, you speak about the fact that you're going to focus on zero rating the gov.za website. You are the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, and you locate yourselves within the broader 5-year strategy of government of digital transformation that when Indonesia is zero rating websites. Who is going to implement the digital public infrastructure? I'm sure you already have an answer because Nina, you monitor. That's what you do, you monitor. Who's going to do the digital payment systems? I heard one day the DG saying, no, the financial services, we must speak to the banks. Why do we need you then, colleagues? What do you do? You are monitoring. So we must monitor your monitoring. Fine. The second thing I want to know, if you look at the top 5 challenges, I believe, and maybe let me agree that I'm subjective, that I believe the sector is confronting. It's legislative, policy, and regulatory reform. I went through your strat plan, your APP with hope. We sit here day after day, week after week, month after month, talking the same thing. Policy, regulatory, and legislative reform. You remove any little movement that was being made through the ECA. You remove anything called the Audio and Audiovisual Services Bill. Now you're talking about a framework. And then cherry on top, you're giving us a symposium. And we must sit here and we must clap for you. That the industry, which is decades behind, must now be so happy that in this financial year you are promising us a symposium and a framework to discuss. What has not been discussed, colleagues, over the last 2 parliamentary terms where you got to an appreciation that there is a legislative challenge? I don't know. I have never heard anything in my life called a bill being in consultation with Cabinet. It's the response that we were given by the minister when we asked how far is the SABC bill. The SABC is bleeding and we're told the bill is in consultation with Cabinet. So who's consulting this bill then with Cabinet? That bill, by the way, is here in this parliament. It's 7 months down the line or more, no movement, no nothing. Then, again, it doesn't even feature in your annual performance plan, amongst many other things that don't feature. They are very, very fantastical numbers that you are giving us, colleagues. You say you intend to ensure 100% connectivity over 5 years. We then ask you, for those who want to follow what I'm saying, we then ask you in the questions. So what are the timelines for this 100% implementation, I think, around your service obligations? No, 100%. 50% of the sites will be done by 31st of March 2025, which has passed. I can tell you now, you have not even done 1%. You then say 65% will be done by 31st of March 2026. So how did you even get to that 15%? Where did you get 50% from? How did you get to 65%? Then it reduces in 2027 to 60%. And then miraculously by 2028 it's 90% and then 100% by 2029. Please make it make sense. And this is what I feel is the problem. Colleagues, it's as if you just don't care. It's as if you just don't care. Just put it out there. We'll shut these politicians up. These politicians know themselves. They've been called these politicians a few times. Shut these politicians up. Just give them this thing that they're asking, and then they approve our documents. It cannot work like that, colleagues. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I actually don't know what we are going to be saying we are approving here if we were to approve it, but I don't want to speak for everybody. Let me wrap up because I've got hundreds and hundreds of pages. I'll just ask you specific things on the document that you have presented. 20% implementation of DCDT, Digital Transformation Strategy, has now dropped to 5%. In Q1 of 2025, you were going to appoint a service provider to review the strategy. So if you were still to appoint a service provider in Q1, how did you decide that you could only implement 20% or 5% of it? Because I'm assuming that there's no strategy to start with. So could we have clarity on that? You speak about all your international targets, 3 country positions, 4 country positions developed and approved, report of the G20 task force, 3 reports on DEWG. You have not even come back here to get agreements ratified. You have not given this parliament any reports on any of the international work that you're doing. We see you up and down, and then this is where you are telling us that you are going to, what you are going to do. Can you speak to us, and I'm not undermining country positions and reports, how are you taking forward these issues, especially where you signed MOUs to change the lives of the people for the better? Who is tracking them? At the beginning of this year, we asked you. Up until to date, we don't have a response. You hid behind us. You told us that we are not ratifying. There's nothing in this parliament that is waiting for ratification. I've asked you who's going to implement the digital economy master plan. The cost to communicate, you're saying, and I would forgive you if that even what your target indicator is was written by AI. You're going to reduce cost to communicate. How? How are you going to do it? How? Can we have a clear answer on the CETA regulations, how long they are in effect for? Because I would assume that regulations are not meant to be permanent, especially when it seems that the department is not prepared to make the legislative changes that are required. And on that note, I want to find out why you would put in a whole 5-year strategic plan the recognizing of equity equivalent investment programs in the ICT sector. How is that a target? We have equity equivalent investment programs in the sector. Now you elevate this to the level of a 5-year target, then in your annual performance plan, you are going to be receiving applications from who? Who said that they want applications? And they are going to give you applications, and hence then you must have this as an annual target in your APP. Where does that come from? Because the annual target is received applications on equity equivalent investment programs. Who said they are bringing equity equivalent investment programs? I'm tired of all these monitoring things. I don't think I even want to speak to them anymore. Participation of women, youth, persons with abilities in procurement, SME development, and employment equity. Your annual target, 2 monitoring reports. So whether those reports say they participate, they don't participate, it doesn't matter. You would have delivered 2 monitoring reports, and this is what we are supposed to say is correct. Your annual target on the DDM is implementation of the departmental and SOC priority projects. What projects? The DDM has been there at least for 5 years. Now you're still having stakeholder consultations. I think I want to stop here because I don't know. And can I just make the point that DG, I disagree with you. There's no problem of resources in this department. There's a problem of vision. There's a problem of leadership. Because we cannot keep hiding behind the fact that no, National Treasury did this, Honorable Alicia is right. We'll never get anything done. We'll never get anything done, and we must sit here every day and understand that National Treasury is not doing this or this. What then, Minister, is the leadership of the organization doing? Why are you there? Then let's just get National Treasury or anybody else who can't do anything with anything run the place. Thank you very much, Minister. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. So I think in order to deal with everything in totality, I would start and also invite the DM to start, and then there are very specific things at operational level that will then be able to direct. But perhaps to deal with the core issues, one starting just on a very, very short break. The issue of rationalization, Honorable Delisha, is to ensure that there are fewer but aligned on the same mandate in terms of the SOEs. There will still be SOEs. They are not being replaced by a private entity on what. So the merger between BBI and Centec, it's still going to be one entity, which is a state-owned entity. So it's not some coded effort to make privatization or not. It's about having leaner aligned mandates of SOEs and making sure that the resources allocated to them. I think one member mentioned the issue around, duplications of leadership and that they are placed within the same firm. And so what Honorable Bodlani was referring to about the DM knocking was our conversation that rationalization is not privatization, but it's basically consolidation of the state-owned enterprises. But then to go on the key issues, Chair, which if we are being honest, we take a lot of what the portfolio committee members raise, particularly on succinct, measurable outcomes. And it informed also the approach in the revision of some of these targets. And I know at the beginning the chair asked, in particular, from a funding perspective, what is the direct link to some of these? And there were also additional reasons which I thought DDG Libagu dealt with, that we're also dealing with what Honorable Subrathi spoken to in terms of the process leading to the adoption of the MDTP, the revised role of each and every direct department in terms of what is directly responsible from ourselves in terms of doing. And the team will be able to elaborate in terms of, do you exist to monitor jobs or not? That isn't the case. In terms of the monitoring, because the chair asked where would the jobs come from, it is the jobs in the sector, right, that are created in the sector through the partners that we have in the sector, because the department directly on its own through its programs doesn't, let me be very careful about this so that I'm not understood. The responsibility of the job creation spills over from the enablers that the department then puts in place, and then what the entities do, and what the rest of the sector does. What I will admit, though, is that there is a weakness in, as two honourable members indicated, is the measurability of what our role in that becomes in doing that, and that is the positive takeaway that I would take in terms of what we then should be doing. And then to go back, just in a fresh memory, because where you ended the chair, in terms of even with the issue of, and listening to members of the portfolio committee saying this, there is a mistrust in the formulation of, the targets and what they mean. And the approach in doing them in this way was not to evade any accountability or anything, but to clearly say, for things within our direct mandate, this is what our capabilities are doing. Hence, even in the risk, there's an identification of the skills deficiency that we have in terms of driving, the digital transformation and also the interventions that are then required on our end. And it's identified as a risk. That means that the approach, even in the staffing, in staffing the new structure of the department, the emphasis is on the technical expertise around the policy processes and also the digital economy expertise that will then empower us to be in a stronger position to do some of the intellectual work that is required in also informing the regulatory outcomes. And you ask, Honorable Chair, about who actually executes the digital transformation roadmap, right? Because we keep making reference to it and all of that. There is the establishment of the digital services, is it digital services unit? Yeah, digital services unit that is placed in the presidency as part of the Operation Vulindlela, efforts in the state. That is being established to be the overseer and executor of the digital transformation roadmap, consolidating all the efforts across, the department, and our role is to be supportive of that enabling work. There is a broader debate to be had about its placement. That is, that is something that we are living with, and not be disruptive to that. And I can tell you, Chair, that there's been very difficult and uncomfortable conversation had, even in terms of, would it make far much better sense if its placement was in the department or otherwise. That is not to distract from the work that is there. But in terms of the direct question around the linkage in terms of the execution, it is with the digital services regulations. And I'll go through them general in terms of the questions and also to give the team the opportunity to respond. In terms of what you also said, Chair, in terms of, for instance, the 50% when it comes to the social obligations, which was the reference in there. You are absolutely right in terms of the 50% that should have been done by March, which was caused in large by the standoff that existed at a technical level between our department and the Department of Basic Education, which meant that from ICASA's perspective, that enforcement didn't happen. And I think it is also the subject of discussion in the joint committee meeting that is coming up on Friday in terms of why we are there. And I think, therefore, your observation about the mere fact that if by March 2025 you had not reached 50%, therefore you are unlikely to get to 60%. That will take the point of the correction there. And then just two things which I think are at a policy level from what you said are critical is, and other members also said in terms of the CETA regulation. We said that they are not indefinite, that there will need to be an annual assessment of its impact to inform their status, and that commitment is still there. On the SABC bill, Chair, as I've said in engagements with the committee, the last engagement we had was with Cabinet on the SABC bill. And ultimately, I'm not beholden to this, the lack of movement on it. The ultimate guidance that we get from Cabinet on it will inform the next action, so that we move swiftly to deal with the issues that are standing in the way and are impacting the SABC. I think there's general consensus about what is the best instrument to put the SABC in the strongest possible position, and it also affects the issue of the Cabinet of the public mandate. Several members of the committee have spoken to the issue of the target removed on the ECA and also on the audiovisual white paper policy. And that's why at the beginning, the DG mentioned that in terms of page 18, the reference to the framework is, that's where the change is in terms of the wording. It is a white paper. It's not a framework. So there is no deviation from going and approaching or reversing anything, Honorable Matava, that may have been done previously. There isn't. And secondly, to speak to the issue of the target on the ECA, on several occasions, and even throughout this journey, the point has been underscored, right, about what others call a wholesale review, or I think Honorable Subrath, in one of your statements that I read, you said revitalization of policy and regulatory element in the space. And it is some of the feedback that we have taken, some of which have been underscored in this portfolio, in saying rather than do a piecemeal approach in terms of amendments to policy, to the ECA, do a holistic relook of one, making sure that the policy is reflective, the policy environment is reflective of the evolved times that we are in. And this is where the proposal, the idea of also the policy colloquium comes into play in there as an inclusive process of that journey, because there is a recognition of that. And we say in the amendment in there that the two technical amendments that needs to be executed, one on the competition matters, the work is already underway, so that shouldn't be stopped, right? But then it's done as part of the whole revitalization review. I'm not too attached to what the exact language is, but it's about a wholesale approach. So, Honorable Matav, there is no, clandestine approach to stop stuff that was in the way, but it's like rather in taking the sentiment, which has also been repeated in here, do a wholesale thing on which the committee will also play a part in. I think on the impact of the delays, the team will be able to highlight those, and it is part of the risks that we highlighted in there, but also the mitigations, so that we are not overexposed in terms of the risks. There was sentiment around economic opportunities for women, youth, and people with disabilities, and Chair, you also mentioned that there was a target that was put there, particularly on the procurement element, in terms of, for women, people with disabilities, that 40% of the procurement be targeted towards those. And honorable, I keep calling you honorable, DDG Libagu will elaborate on that.
Maybe it's coming.
Maybe it's coming indeed. And then I think the team will also respond with the issue of the reduction of the target, particularly the 20% to the 5%. I'll ask the team to come in there. Honorable Delisha, we've dealt with, and then on the zero rating, DG, I'll ask, as part of the work that is being done, particularly to reconcile with your question, Chair, in terms of who does the digital public identity and the digital payments, which is what part of the digital services unit is executing through the introduction of the My Mzansi ID. It encapsulates that, including the aggregation of all government services through the gov.za portal, so that it is done there. But DG will elaborate more in detail about that. And then yeah, I think from my end, that deals with some of the broader issues, and then the team will deal with the technical elements that were raised. DM also, you will make your input now, and then we'll be able to complement each other also at the end, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think the Minister has made a concession with regard to the general document aligning with the results-based management science. Therefore, there's an acknowledgement that in that regard, it's got serious witnesses. Two, I think, Chair, you're asking a question of the focus. Maybe the point, Minister, is that is being raised, if I understood, is that irrespective of how much money you have, the smart way, how are you going to spend the little you have, needs to send a message that were you to get better money, you were to work differently. I think that's the question, that's a takeaway. But that one other thing, to me, maybe the Minister will remember, I once raised this, is that, you know, one of the critical issues maybe all of us needs to apply our minds to is what we call integrated, the phenomenon of integration. I just want to read the introduction on the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Does it still exist? We don't see it.
No, that's why I'm raising.
Plan AP,
I'm speaking about integration. What really worries me about this document was well researched, and it was a multi-stakeholder document across society, and its intention was to propose the country's overarching strategy. When a lot of proposals are done in the document, I've always asked myself a question that it's a matter that we need to discuss, that it's either we discard this document and move in the manner we do, or accept that will look better structured if we move on the basis of the existence of this document. Because why did it say overarching strategy for the fourth industrial revolution? One of the key issues that the document raises is two issues which it came out with, which could be, which it says after the entire analysis of everything, this country needs to deal with two issues: competitiveness and social well-being. Because this country is a small, open economy. In other words, the main value to its GDP does not come from within. It comes from outside. So for a small, open economy, its most critical approach is how competitive you are. Because the major markets are not within your country. You have to build. If you go to America, for instance, it's one of the leading countries in terms of having self-supportive economy. Usually one of my teachers would have said, if countries were to stop trading amongst one another, which country would live longer than the other? America was demonstrated as one of the countries that could live longer because it's about 40 or 50% market comes from within. So such countries do not have a huge, although things are different now. So a small open economy, its critical pillar is competitiveness and the human resource. Singapore will demonstrate that, Japan will demonstrate that, although now they have passed that protocol. So the point I'm making is that on the integration, these are some of the things we need to talk about. Your national development plan, your this fourth industrial protocol document, how do they inform our planning going forward? My last point is that, because Minister has covered a lot, my last point is that if you look at this document, the fourth industrial revolution, one of the critical things it does, it demonstrates an approach on, as a government, in skills development, how would the plans of the industry inform your interventions? Because if you go to different sectors, they will tell you, these are the digital skills we're looking to in the coming 4 years, in the coming 3 years, because they are formed by the evolution of competitiveness and so on. So I'm just saying maybe that's some of the things we need to talk about. The keyword to me is integration, integration, integration. Because to come with that focus, you need to have what? There's always a risk of coming with new things. And I want to argue that a lot of things that we keep on coming with, even the time I was a minister myself, I'm not blaming anyone. When we try to move away from this document, you go back to this document, for 99% of the things you are doing, they have been answered in this document. Yours is to coin a strategy to implement these issues. So I align with the minister in terms of RMB, results management, RBM, results-based management approach. A lot of work needs to be done. Focus, a lot of work to be done. Minister has answered the issues of policy and the SABC bill, and I think all of us must be worried about where they are, those issues. Otherwise, the technical issues, I think DG and the team will actually deal with that. Thank you.
Internally, we've reached the conclusion that it's best to seek a non-litigious settlement on their approach, to the extent that the mandate to our legal representatives has been given to reach out to the broadcasters' legal representatives, and I think there was a date for mid-June that was agreed on those two terms to open at that level those engagements so that we can get to an out of court, and hopefully we can get there so that we all put what we are able to put on the table in terms of dealing with the issue of, the consultative process, which is what the court was very clear in addressing. and also dealing with the current ongoing issue, which has its own risks, particularly to us, which is the ongoing registrations, which then kicks up the target and all those associated costs. So I thought that it's important that we deal with that one. The team should also deal with the question particularly around the post-business rescue lifespan. They'll know that we had advertised for the board for the post office, and that process is underway. The other note was around lifestyle audits, which I think the team would add. Honorable Vilagazi had an observation around corruption in middle management and the inferences there. So the DG will also deal with that. I thought that was important to underscore in giving direction on the responses. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, DG.
Maybe the little point. I'm sure DG will
We're
also...
allowing you to speak because we haven't seen you in meetings in a while.
Me?
Please proceed. Both of you, please proceed.
Shots fired.
Well, the chairperson is on form. I just wanted to say maybe DG, when she speaks on the capacity issue, she may also speak about her intervention on the EPMO, because it's also a critical intervention in dealing with these issues.
Yeah, DG, we want you to speak, answer as much as you can, as clearly as you can, but I know that I'm getting messages from members that they want to follow up, so please do manage your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I was actually also going to ask, Chair, that maybe, I don't know if there's going to be the sufficient time for us to submit some of these responses in writing. I know, Chair, yes, but we will respond.
Sorry, DG. I'm not undermining what you're saying. We are sitting with a problem where we're expected to approve this strat plan. And in our discussions with members, there are problems. You know, if you are going to respond to the questions, please give them to us today, because we need to interrogate this and see if we can find one another without wasting any time. And I'm sorry for wasting any time. I was saying to Honorable Matafa, you're having to pull me from rejecting strat plan to convince me to move to amending. So there is nothing in my head that is we are at acceptance. So I implore you to take it with the urgency and the resolve that I think it requires. Thank you very much, DG.
And thank you, Chair. Maybe that's what I was also going to have a discussion, because I was reading in the questions being asked by honorable members, and all of them is there's a suggestion with regards to revision. Chair. So perhaps whilst we are going to submit as a department, would also like to invite to say, can we also get suggested proposals in writing from the honourable members and the honourable House for us to also look at. And maybe then we can work in terms of timeframes to say we still submit our answers today. If we get those by Friday, we respond. I know it's Friday, and then we take it from there. But very quickly, on some of these, and I've got my colleagues here, it would be good to also hear, and they can weigh in on some of these. On the issues related to, on the lifestyle audit, I'm just going to quickly touch randomly. We actually one of the department that has volunteered on issues of lifestyle audit. Currently, we do the declarations, financial declarations for senior management, and then also for middle management, focusing specifically on the functional areas which are critical, finance being one of those. And then over and above that, whilst the public service has not yet commenced on a mandatory lifestyle audit, we are one of those departments that has actually volunteered to participate in the lifestyle audit for that. But however, Honorable Vilagazi, and I think for transparency issues, currently there are certain investigations that are taking place in the department. None at the moment we can conclude is the issues of corruption, but however, there has been one or two cited allegations with regards to that there could be some collusions taking place, but those matters are also being looked at. Other investigations, I just want to put it for the record, are purely issues of inefficiencies and matters obviously that were not followed due process and were taking. And this therefore reflects the issues of us taking these matters seriously, and therefore consequence management post those reports would also be affected. With regards to the issues on job creation, perhaps if I can just come in on that. On job creation, yes, it is true. What we are doing in terms of the limitations, but I just want to indicate that one of our, whilst the department is not the main driver, but under the portfolio, we've got a number of government state-owned entities that actually do contribute. And obviously now this situation changes. So under the BBI Centec, the SA Connect, we actually empowered over 75 ISPs. Now you would know that each SMME or ISP, you are basically employing 3 to 4 people. So you can calculate in terms of the numbers of that. And yes, I think there was a question that was being asked. I think it must have been Honorable Vilakazi or Honorable Botlan. This is also going to then have an adverse impact with regards to those jobs that we have created now that the funding for the SA Connect has been suspended. Again, under CETA as well as .ZEDNA, we were looking at creating email addresses for learners as well as websites. Again, there's another form, an initiative in terms of the job creation. Under SAPO, we have, and now answering your question as well, Honorable Chair, we've got an agreement on the Take a Lot, and you're stealing thunder in terms of the budget vote speech, but we've got a Take a Lot agreement in place. We've made a mention of that. The agreement itself says that they will therefore onboard the previously retrenched SAPO members. And then on top of that, there's still an opportunity and allocation that is for recruitment of South African citizens in as far as then the delivery of parcels. The overall estimate from a Take-A-Lot perspective in terms of the business expansion is that they're looking to recruit up to 18,000 South Africans. So those are the numbers that we are also partly tracking when we talk about the number of the 20,000 jobs being created. We also then have on Collective X, we've signed an MOU with them. Collective X is basically training for onboarding as well in terms of the digital skills, and the target is for this financial year, it's 2,000 youngsters that we are also then going to be training for the onboarding of that. We have not yet concluded the agreement with AWS as well as NASPAS, but those are the ones that we are looking at in terms of the current discussions, and we are seeing that all of those numbers are actually going to leapfrog us to then the 20,000. To respond again further on this particular issue, I think on the jobs, honorable members, how do we break down the up to 150 over the 5-year period? As I said, so in terms of a breakdown for this year, our target is 20,000. Next year, we're targeting 40,000 jobs being created. 2027, 2028 is 50,000 jobs being created. And then in the latter year, we're breaking it down in terms of 30 and 30 in order for us to get to the 150,000 jobs. Then on the issue with regards to the digital transformation roadmap, answering also Honorable Dr. Gulishi, Gov.za is going to be zero rated, and it is part of the digital transformation roadmap. The question that was being asked to then say what exactly is our role with regards to the overall digital transformation roadmap. The minister has indicated that we are working with because this project has now been adopted under presidency as the president's Apex project. So we're working with with presidency as well as the National Treasury. Amongst the priorities within that is one, for example, looking at digital identity. Now, we all know that the mandate of person identification in the country resides with Home Affairs. It's not necessarily that Home Affairs is leading on this. Our role as a department is to ensure the interoperability of the systems as well as norms and standards, and also to safeguard on the issues of data. So we've got a data and cloud. So there are a number of enabler instruments that we are actually going to be, as the DCDT, ensuring during this process. And yes, we are working within the CETA system to make sure that interoperability and network of standards, along with other institutions within government, including of those would be CSIR. And then on the digital payment is being led by National Treasury as well as the South African Revenue SARS, as well as but it's all the entities under the National Treasury. And we, again, want to ensure then the interoperability of the systems there. There's also a pilot that we have now concluded to then say we're going to apply what is the MOSIP plan in as far as to ensure that all of this, the network actually works well together. And then the onboarding, still under the digital transformation, onboarding of digital services. Honorable members, you would have then seen our report from the previous years to say, up until now, we have done 136 e-services online. And then we are now going to ramp up the rest of those services to then put them on the .gov.za systems in order to ensure the single view of the citizen perspective. So again, our work does not necessarily just rely in terms of the zero rating of sites, but we're also making sure the onboarding of those e-government services working with CETA. And then, as I indicated, that we would then monitor that as well as ensuring the zero rating. Perhaps then it is an issue of the detail behind the plan. When we then look at the other issues, I'm going to ask the DDG to come in on the AI policy, addressing I want to concede that perhaps then the delays with regards to the audio and audio-visual, but just to indicate the alignment with regards to some of other policy instruments which are underway, that we would be able to address some of these issues. I think the one related in terms of fake news, I'm going to ask the DDG to respond on that. And this basically also addresses the issue of how do we drive innovation within our department. And again, DDG will have unpacked in terms of saying we're not just going to address fake news and disinformation only from a policy perspective, but there are actually going to be tools to address that. DDG, please.
Well, thank you, DG, for that. Good afternoon, honorable members. Good afternoon, Chair, the Minister, and the DM. I think in terms of the fake news, from the policy point of view, in terms of the AI policy that we're developing. Oh, okay. No, I was saying from the AI policy that we're currently developing. There are some proposals that we're putting in, one of them being the National AI Safety and Security Institute. It can be included in some of the instruments that we've already got in the state. But I think the main focus for that is to ensure that we can have, the enhanced governance through POPIA-aligned frameworks, but also we can have, bias detection as well as mitigation. But also there's also this, the legal and technical remedies for the deepfakes, which include, the AI-generated content, but also child-targeted manipulative systems. So we are proposing that as part of, the AI policy development. But the policy in itself is inclined to make sure that we can use AI for economic development. So there are a lot of policy development initiatives that we are trying to work in there. I don't want to predicate, Minister, the work because we still have got that policy in a draft form. But I think these are some of the areas that we are trying to address in terms of the policy. But also, I think I need to touch a little bit, DG, in the area of the MOSIP, which is the modular open source identity platform that we are trying to pilot. It's one of the areas, Chair, that, from the digital transformation, we are not only doing the monitoring, so there are some initiatives that we are doing from the department. And this POC is going to assist us in terms of providing the foundation for digital identity as well as single sign-on. Currently now we do have these e-services that DG has highlighted, which has got the higher education and all that. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that whenever you access these services, you've got one sign-on, and you're not going to be signing on various platforms, but you do have a one sign-on for these services. But also we are enabling the digital signatures as well as the e-wallet. So it's one of the things that we're going to be doing this current financial year as well. So it's some of the work that we're doing, Chair, from the digital transformation point of view on this. Let me not explain too much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DDG Masholo. Chair, maybe just to come in on the issues related to the, if at all there's going to be the on jobs, job cuts on the SA Connect, considering that the issue of the funding. Just to indicate that the PMO that was actually dealing with the SA Connect also deals with other infrastructure connectivity programs. At least we are able to do that. And that also shows the intent by the state-owned entities in terms of looking for business outside, obviously, what is the allocation that we've put there. But we will reconfirm with the BBI and Centec if there are any intended job losses. With regards to the MNOs and the risk, honorable members, that is a debate. But I just want to highlight the issues related to, in terms of the social obligations. I think Chair was raising the issue to then say, and then what? We, as you would know, we allocated the IMT spectrum license to the operators. We also then indicated the number of schools, government clinics, government hospitals, libraries, as well as traditional offices of which they were supposed to be connecting. And as it reflected that within year one, which was ended 31st March, 50% was supposed to be, and then the outer years, we are going to ramp it up to 65, 80% as well as 90%, concluding with 100% of these connectivity by 31st of March 2028. 31st March 2029. However, through ICASA, because obviously the licensees is mandated, is a mandatory role of our regulator, they have now come back to concede to say they are not able to. We've received a letter from ICASA dated it was now in June, which on the 18th of June, which then indicate that all of them, the licensees, did not meet their obligations. Our question was then to say from ICASA, owing to the fact that in the license itself, there are certain conditions that you have put. What is it that you're going to be now doing in as far as exercising those particular clauses? However, some of those delays, though, are reflective of the fact that the Department of Basic Education only came on board fully in February of this year, which is then leading to the particular delays. We are also rather quite concerned, honorable members, with regards to this particular issue, and perhaps maybe then we would need to look at alternatives in as far as this particular trend, because it's not necessarily a matter that has arisen now, but we've had it in the previous term of the social obligations that have been put there. And then with regards to the use of the USAF, there is a study that we're currently busy with. As you know, we're also busy with regards to the repositioning of the Universal Service Fund, and to move it to a digital development fund, and it is part of our work as well. And on the SABC as well as the SABC and Centec, and resolving the issues of the funding challenges, I think that was posed by Honorable Vilakazi. The issues that what we're trying to do there is to assist both the broadcaster as well as Centec. Centec fortunately has got other alternative plans in as far as how do they commercialize their infrastructure as well as their business. And they have actually exploit those, and those are some of the contracts are almost imminent in terms of concluding. However, we're also then, as the state, seeking alternative business. One of those, Honorable Chair, is that BBI, Centec, and CETA have signed an MOU. And that particular MOU is then to say, how do we make sure that we maximize on this issue of the digital infrastructure in the country? So how do you close the gaps if maybe CETA is now being given a contract in terms of, okay? As I conclude, Sapo.
Chair, good afternoon to you, to the honorable members, the minister, deputy minister, and the colleagues. I'm going to be very brief, Chair, just to give an update on the SAPO termination of the business rescue. We have been in discussions with SAPO with the BRPs on their possible exit from the post office. They have since submitted the draft court application to that effect, on which we will be discussing with them starting tomorrow going forward. I think the question, though, was that their existence in the post office has essentially created a brain drain in the post office, in the sense that the post office has lost some of its key personnel as a result of their being there. That we acknowledge, Chairperson, it is true. We have then had discussions with them about now starting to fill in or fill up those vacancies. They've indicated to us that there are 3 particular vacancies that need to be filled in rather urgently as they negotiate their exit. Those are the chief HR person, the legal services division of the post office, which effectively is non-functional now, so needs to be capacitated, as well as the office of the chief operations officer of the post office. Those are the 3 key areas that need to be capacitated within the post office rather urgently. The other question, Chair, that was raised related to the 150 million environment that was made towards the post office. And the question was, how did we prioritize the post office relative to particularly the SABC, which was in equal need of funding? The reason we ended up funding the post office at the time is that we were in negotiations with National Treasury about the 3.8 billion funding requirement for SAPO that was promised in the court papers when we went to business rescue. Treasury could not fund the 3.8 billion and then said the department must look within its coffers to see the extent to which it can finance the operations of the post office to keep it going. It was then decided that at best the department could allocate the 150 million towards the post office to keep it running until a major decision is taken about its financial position, Chair. Thank you very much.
DG, at some point you're going to have to introduce us if you filled your DDG positions, because we're getting confused. So if there are new positions, new people in positions, also a question of women in your leadership. What I'm going to ask honorable members is I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask one burning question. You may not get a response now, but where you have a question, and we're doing this because I want to propose a way forward around this. And as I do so, I don't want us to invoke law to resolve what I think is a problem of differences in lack of appreciation of issues. Maybe let me put it like that. We have done it with the GCIS yesterday, when we took a decision that we would invoke Section 10.5 of the Money Bills Amendment Procedure Act and approve their budget with conditions. That is an invocation of law. And my understanding was, because there's no lack of understanding between us and the GCIS in terms of what needs to be done, there is a difference in whether that is going to be done or not. Hence, then Parliament exercised its powers to amend the money bill that the GCIS put before us. I have reason to believe maybe it's an unfunded hope that with the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, maybe we are talking past one another. So I want to make a proposal that what we will do from this meeting, similar to the process that we followed with GCIS when we asked you for your submissions on conditions, we will request an engagement outside of the legislative process of amending their bill. The DG has put a suggestion that which we are unhappy about, obviously we're not writing thesis members, ne? Is it something that can be considered for them to revise ahead of us having to do that? I can tell you now mine is going to be the legislative amendments that are needing to be done, that I don't believe that can be postponed. If we're able to find one another with the DCDT, we don't have to amend their money bill. And I would hope that we don't have to amend their money bill. But even that process, then we don't have a lot of time. So very quickly, if there are any, what is this that I'm looking for? Follow-ups, which won't be responded to now, but the DG and the team will take as takeaway. Honorable Chauke Adonis?
It's on. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think from my side, as part of my follow-up, I'm not clear as to whether I got a response regarding the SABC bill and also the audio-visual white paper and where we are currently standing as a department. Secondly, I would, as part of my follow-up and just adding, is to say, can we have segregated data of how the vulnerable groups that have been identified are going to be empowered in terms of economic transformation and being beneficiaries of the plans that have been outlined. If that data can be segregated with various demographic groups, gender, race, etc. My last one would be in terms of the connectivity. It is alluded or it is indicated that we're looking at 100% of connected household, etc. I just want to find out in terms of municipalities, what is the role of municipalities in this instance, number one, and then additionally to that, it would then be how many government institutions or facilities are currently across the country not connected, and especially those in rural and disadvantaged areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chauke Adonis. Honorable Elisha?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I only just also have one question. So BBI was established with a mandate, which is simple, to provide and ensure that there is connectivity across South Africa, especially in the underdeserved and rural communities, right? And so the intent was that then BBI would inherit and be in charge of the fiber. I hope I'm correct. Will be in charge of the fiber from the state entities, right? And be in control of that. But we still have BBI located in some of these state entities. So if Minister BBI was allowed or is in charge now, then that would mean that they own the biggest Wi-Fi in the country, and we wouldn't be faced with the situation that we're faced with now. And if that was happening, we would have the MNOs forced to reduce the data price. That is my understanding. I don't know. I'm expecting a nod, Honorable Bodlani. But the minister. So I want to see if I'm getting this correctly. So Minister, we are in this position. Where I'm going is that we are in this position because the department, you are not enforcing the BBI Act, because the Act allows all of these things, that we wouldn't be faced with the crisis of expensive data and a Wi-Fi that is not available across South Africa. So I wanted to know if there's a political will on your side to enforce the BBI Act, because if it is enforced, I believe that we would be faced with a different situation now. So that's all I want. Because you also even have, in my understanding, Chair, also if the state entities are refusing to give these rights, the minister has got a right to expropriate land and give it to PBI. So I want to know if there is no will. You want the private sector dance, and while we suffer, okanye kwenzeka ntoni. I just want clarity on that one, Chairperson. Thanks.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, this new rule about these politicians nodding heads is very difficult for me. I had to keep my head firm as the minister was responding. Chairperson, very simple. I need clarity in terms of the amount that the BRP needs as part of the third condition for the statutory creditors to settle. Are we getting that money? Because that's the last of the conditions to meet before they exit. I didn't get that. Did we get it or are we getting it? The post office, the last portion to settle the statutory creditors that they are looking for. That is the last condition that needs to be met. I didn't see that coming. So I think that will stall the exit if that is not met. And secondly is the financially related is the almost over 1 billion rand that rollover that was turned down by Treasury for the SA Connect. What is the knock-on effect of that on BBI and Centec, possibly on their going concern? Any other implication? Thanks so much, Officer.
Thank you, Chair. This question was alluded to earlier. I think it was in response to your question that Honorable Podlani had asked. I just didn't quite get the response, and in fact, I'd appreciate it in writing. Maybe it would be better then. Just in terms of focus on innovation and sovereign technology development, what steps is the department taking to ensure local ownership and development of technologies to drive real sustainable economic growth and job creation? Just clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I think let's hold it there because we don't want to eat into any more time. Minister, Deputy Minister, there is a proposal on the floor that I had made. Today is Wednesday. I'm hoping that we can find one another on some of these issues. Perhaps the content advisors, after consultation with the members, can engage with the DG and the team on some of these matters. And as I'm saying, Minister, I really don't want us to go the GCIS way if we can find each other otherwise. Because if we are able to amend certain things so that they're a little bit more palatable to us on both sides, and exactly what you and the DM were speaking about a results-based measurement framework, where we are very clear, all of us, what we are going to achieve, what the impact of that is. We can even volunteer. Honorable Vilakazi here, it's his specialty, working on such things to support you. Maybe let me get your comments as we move towards the close of the meeting.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the proposal is straightforward. I think the missing thing in that proposal is then the working timeline for that, or whether we leave that to that engagement, so that we're conscious of what we're working towards. But I accept the principled nature of it is to find a constructive way to reconcile where we stand apart. I don't think there is anything unhygienic with that proposal. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I've never heard anybody refer to a proposal as hygienic or otherwise. DM, is there any additions from you?
The critical question is what you said, that if you are amending, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. If we follow because you remember you said follow-ups will be raised but not be responded now. The most critical item now is the process forward. I'm saying as long as we can stick to that principle of seamlessness between yourselves, your team, and the department, because that would actually fast track and even make it shorter. But the risk of anyone working in silo and later coming might take another time. I think as long as that process and that approach, I think it can work.
Thank you very much.
That's what Mr. says, that's why it says it's scientific. The seamlessness.
Thank you. Maybe let's give it a chance. In terms of timelines, we need to have agreement, if there's going to be agreement, by Friday, because failing which then it means that we would need to write to the Standing Committee on Appropriations, then give Minister 2 days to respond. It doesn't give us a lot of time, given the fact that we still need to consider our report and stick to the agreed date of the 11th of July. Yeah, let's give it a shot. I think it's worth a shot. Without wasting any time then, DG, when are you committing the written responses? Can you say by end of today? A lot of them may have already been answered. Members, please do also familiarize yourself with the initial list, but there are quite a few new issues that were raised today as well. Thank you. Are there any other issues, members? Because we have come to the end of the agenda. Any closing remarks, Minister, that you want to make? Let me not make any closing remarks then, and thus make the process unhygienic. Forgive Minister. Thank everybody for their time today. Sorry. I'm informed that we must also welcome the newly appointed researcher of the committee. Can raise him. Okay. As we walk out of this door, we're also going to ask for the gender representation of committee staff, but you are welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Honorable members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, and all colleagues, thank you so much for making the time for this engagement. I think that we are now all working towards the 11th of July, and I wish us progressive deliberations as we try and find one another on these vexing issues. Without any further ado, the meeting is adjourned, and we will meet on Friday, the 4th of July, 1 o'clock for the budget vote on the Government Communication and Information System. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Meeting is closed.
The meeting has a committee meeting.
Yeah.
Friday.